This is the ATI.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the ATI podcast. We appreciate everybody tuning in this evening for the live feed on episode 49. And just to get some quick introductions out of the way, we've got myself, Barrett Lewis, as usual, and we've got Brandon Stewart, a.k.a. Knobnard, a.k.a. Tom Tickle, a.k.a. Whole Boy. You know him from all this shit that we do here in the flesh. And Mr. Danny King from It's Just Two Movies.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey, brother. Doing some good shit over there at It's Just Two Movies. I got the chance to listen to Brandon's appearance in full not too long ago.
Oh,
you guys had a highly entertaining for sure.
Yeah, we had a good time.
And
a little bit religion.
Yeah, I could. I've been friends with Brandon long enough to know his different phases of drunkdom, and they were all on display in that episode.
Yeah, they definitely were. I went back and listened to it, and I'm like, maybe not drink as heavily next time around.
Yeah, I think before we got started, you were 4 or 5 Trulies into it.
I think so, yeah.
God. So, you guys have probably recognized Danny from our horror roundtable. Brandon also participated in that. Myself, we're going to have Doug Wicker from Search Party Pictures on this episode at some point as well. Doug's running a little bit behind, so when he hops in, we'll get him caught up. But yeah, you know, Doug, such a celebrity, he's too big for us. He's got to be fashionably late.
Is he still in Paris?
He is not in Paris. He is stateside now. Yeah, so he doesn't have.
Make sure we were going to get, in his new movie that he's producing.
Right.
I wanted to make sure that we weren't stepping on his toes or anything.
Yeah, or if there'd be a celebrity run in from Macron amidst his conversation, his feed.
I wonder if he had sex with Macron.
I don't know. They got that whole dossier on his sex life. Apparently, that's salacious. So
this isn't a political conversation.
So, anywho, today we're going to be revealing our 5 favorite movies of the year. Each of us have prepared a list to talk about and make our case for. We're going to mix things up today. There will be some crossover, I'm sure. I know that all of us have some similar interests when it comes to film, but there's different reasons that people love things as well. So I think that I might be able to detail a movie, why it's so special to me, or the reason that I like it this year differently than how it impressed upon Danny or Brandon in this instance, or Doug when he joins us. So that's kind of the idea. If we do get any crossover, we're just going to try and talk on it differently. Amidst our discussion today, too, we're going to be throwing in picks for both male and female performances of the year. We're going to talk about our disappointment of the year as well. And then maybe if we have some time, we'll talk about maybe a movie that we're looking forward to in 2023 that's coming out. And if you listen to our 2022 Albums of the Year episode collab that we did with Waxing On, or listen to or watch the horror roundtable that we had previously, kind of the same format that we're following here tonight. So it'll be a little familiar, if you will. So are you guys ready to start talking movies?
Hell yeah, boy. Let's get down to it.
I was born ready.
All right. So why don't we start off, guys, with our number 5 on our list. What do you, Danny, have at number 5 for 2022?
Come back to me, please. Because
okay.
I've got a tie for number 5. I tried to limit it to 5, and I've got a tie there, and I'm sure one of you two guys.
That's fine.
Has one of these.
Yeah, no worries. Brandon, why don't you go ahead and give us your number 5 then?
We just believe in no structure here at the ATI podcast. I believe everybody knows that anarchy rules over all. We don't care about anything that has to do with politics. And mine are in no particular order whatsoever. But I will say, if we're to break it down, Number 5 was going to be. I'm going to say Black Phone was my number 5.
Okay.
It's been a while for me since I felt like anything was necessarily in those top tier horror icon or could be horror icons out there. And I think that was definitely a terrifying, unsettling. I didn't think it was going to be that good. I think I was pleasantly surprised by it. I think that's the reason why I liked it so much. It's always unsettling whenever we bring kids into it, but this just didn't give a shit. So, much like the reasons why I like Terrifier and Terrifier 2, it's just unrelenting and not holding anything back. And then Ethan Hawke, I mean, is always he's a contender for Best Actor of the Year, in my opinion, every single year that he puts out a new film. I mean, he's been in the game a long time. I don't think he's gotten as much recognition as he should.
Agreed.
He can be unsettling. He can be. I think the only thing that I've not necessarily cared for him in, which it's not that he didn't do really a bad job, but as of late, is the new Moon Knight. Because there was just nothing there. Yeah,
it's a weird play for Ethan Hawke for sure.
Yeah, I think that's more the speed that I'm not used to with him, but this just brought him back into a whole different level. He's a fucking creep.
I think he's such a likable guy. It's hard to see him playing a bad guy, if you will, to put it simply. Like it's almost unbelievable. But I've heard nothing but good things about his performance in Black Phone. I actually haven't seen Black Phone yet. So
it's a lot of fun, man. I really liked it. Look, everybody's trying to do a fucking Stranger Things thing.
Yeah.
And he's one of the few that pulled it off properly without it feeling Stranger Thingsy.
Right. Gotcha.
That makes sense?
Yeah, definitely.
It's got that same kind of 80s waka waka waka. That I don't know, just that particular era of feel for it. It works really well. Fun flick.
Yeah, it's something that's on my watch list. I mean, admittedly, I probably watched way more TV shows than movies this year because my time was so limited with a newborn in the house and everything else. It was hard for us to dive deep into 2-hour movie or whatever. We found ourselves getting through 30 to 45-minute episodes of things a little bit more easily. So and so I'm perhaps maybe a little ashamed of my list overall, but I'll go ahead and come in with my number 5.
Whoa! I like to say that we have no structure here.
Yeah.
So I do have a tie that I just wanted to throw out there, Danny, if you want to follow suit. X is definitely on my top 5. X is anytime me and Barrett, I remember watching House of the Devil with Barrett for the first time. And we watched that together, and we were automatically hooked to Ty West. Ty West is just a fucking genius. And then he comes out with a second fucking movie already made, with what's it called?
Pearl?
Yeah, with Pearl. So it's one of those things where Doug from Paris.
Doug from Paris is with us on the call now. Doug, you're not too late, brother.
Did you just get off the flight to the Netherlands? Are you doing the new Lord of the Rings out there? Or is that how's that going?
I wish. No, I just ran over trying to get out of work.
You're the new Samwise, right?
So I'm getting that paycheck.
Hell yeah. I'd be a lot worse than Samwise for a good paycheck.
It would just be a porno at that point, Barry.
Yeah, basically. So Doug Wicker is with us from Search Party Pictures now. I alluded to the fact he'd make a little late run-in, and we got Doug here, and we all kind of started on our number 5s, but Brandon so rudely interrupted me before I could even get my number 5 out.
I was just saying he was too busy.
He was too busy trying to blow up everybody's list by talking about X right out the gate.
Two-way tie. Oh, my God.
So, Brandon, you were in the midst of talking about getting ready to talk about Pearl. Let you finish that thought.
No, I won't steal anybody else's thunder. I really love the film. It's Ty West. It's the best. And Brittany Stowe, you get to see her boobies. So that's pretty nice.
That you do. It's a fact.
Yep.
All right, Mr. Doug Wicker, I know you're just hopping on here. Do you have your 5th pick that you could give us, Doug, or would you like me to go ahead and go?
Yep. Coming in hot. The Banshees of Inisherin is my 5th.
Okay.
So, has anyone got that on their list?
I've got it on my list, but I'll get into my reasons for liking it whenever it's my turn.
Is it higher?
It is much higher.
Okay. All right, then we'll hold and I'll talk about it when we get to yours.
That's all good. So my number 5 is Prey. I thought it was kind of a surprise in some senses because I think a lot of people didn't know how good this was going to be and really couldn't anticipate how good it would be. And a lot of the Predator franchise releases, if you will, over the years have been lackluster, or they had a lot of potential and just didn't ultimately deliver. Like a movie that I actually enjoyed was Predators, and but it did not live up to its potential that it laid out itself in its own film. I feel like
you say that Adrian Brody one's not bad.
Yeah, I did enjoy it.
Not a fan of Adrian Brody. Like I'm just not a huge fan. I really like Predators.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty strong, still yet. And but Prey, back to that. I don't believe I saw any other movies from this director previously. So Dan Trachtenberg, I think is how you enunciate his last name. And just to kind of give the okay. And to kind of give the synopsis of the movie, if you haven't seen it, it's set in the Comanche Nation about 300 years ago, and it's the story of Nauru, a young Comanche girl. And she's a fiercely skilled warrior. In fact, she's equal to, if not better than most of the males in her tribe, but they're kind of dealing with that sexism even back then, where the men had to be the leaders and the women couldn't be. Well, she wanted to be the leader of her tribe. So it's kind of got its own little story going on there. But they're kind of out in the Great Plains area, and there starts to be a danger threatening their camp and some of their hunting and that sort of stuff. And they kind of miscast what it is. You know, originally they think it's a tiger a mountain lion, which they do have an encounter with at some point. But ultimately it ends up being the predator, a predator, I should say. So, it was a Hulu release too. It was $65 million budget for the movie. It's 99.
Hulu's crushing it this year.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they've had a lot of good exclusive releases. Movie's 99 minutes long, not too long, so I think it's worth everybody giving it a try. And funny enough, I actually went back and watched the original Predator this year, and that's like an all-time favorite. And when you're a kid and you see that, you think it's the most cool thing you've ever seen. Yeah. And I didn't realize how bad some of the acting is in that, because it's been a good 10 years since I'd watched it, and some of the dialogue is just horrific as well. And things that I thought was cool when I was younger, revisiting it now with a more skilled eye for cinema, I guess, and appreciation for even things like dialogue in a film. It was quite the interesting trip down memory lane, I guess. So I don't think I would probably have the same opinion of the original Predator today of seeing that for the first time versus where I was at my life when I first saw it. But this is a movie, I guess, in the long list of Predator-related releases. So you've, of course, have Predator 2 and the Predator versus Alien movies. I think this is as good, if not better, than all of them. And the acting performances are great. I mean, it's largely people of Native American descent as well were casted throughout this movie. So, sometimes these movies get whitewashed and that sort of thing, leaves a poor taste in people's mouths. But another thing I got to commend this movie on is this historical accuracy. The French fur trappers, the costuming and things like that. Like, it was actually considered one of the most historically accurate movies from its set design and costuming and that sort of stuff as well. So really cool flick. I think it's a sleeper that a lot of people might be looking over and not even realize maybe that it's a Predator film. But it is really good. Special effects are good. Story's good. Acting's fantastic. Costuming, it checks every box for me.
So that Prey's my number 4 for the year.
Okay.
I mean, there's definitely, like, my honorable mentions are full of just like great movies that maybe didn't reinvent the wheel, but did something interesting that was worth putting down. For me though, Prey was like kind of like, it was a reinvention of a film. It's kind of like one of those, like, as you said, as a kid, like I was, the Alien and the Predator franchises were like Bibles to me. Like, they were my Star Wars, so as fanatic as people can be about Star Wars, I am about that series of movies. I always loved the science fiction aspect of it. and how well it blends that and horror so well. But the biology of the monsters is always so interesting and so much more.
Definitely.
I don't know, just felt just slightly more immersive to me. Like whereas like, like a movie like Star Wars or a show like Star Trek, it's like a lot of world building and how interesting or weird are these worlds that we go to. Whereas like with this, it was interesting to take something and put it in a more familiar kind of space. We recognize these places they're at, even if they're alien worlds, they're not so exotic that they're unfamiliar. They still feel like something you could find and see. And to me, like you could always feel like the heartbeat of the film, like the creatures within. But more importantly than that, there are different types of films. Like, the first Predator movie is very much a commando movie that takes a turn and kind of goes a really interesting oddball place. But with that, it's like, I also read those comic books and played all the video games. I was crazy about this shit as a kid. And the thing about the Prey was like, it's the story that like the fans of the comics and everything, it's the kind of thing we always knew it could be. Like ever since like, for as long as like I remember, there was that hint, that Easter egg that set up to like the pirate story of the Flint pistol and shit, and like there's always that idea like there's been predators for eternities. What that symbolizes, like for as long as there's been mankind, there's been predators hunting us. So everyone's always wanted that story where it's like, what happens if you take one of those and you drop it in a different into a period piece? Like what kind of movie do you get? And more than anything, it's like they picked a perfectly capable like. It's like always like I'd seen, fan fiction kind of art of like predators in like feudal Japan and stuff like that. And it's like, it always makes you like that much more hungry to like, it's like the cool thing about the Predator, he can be reinvented over and over again.
Right.
Even though the same actor played him in the first and second movie, he brought a completely different performance to both films. Like you can definitely tell in Predator 2 that the Predator's performance is a lot more like brash, a little more like youthful, a little more like risk taking and thoughtless, as opposed to how like
measured the first was.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's a little more rogue than the first one, and it's like to me, it's like it kind of tells you like even though they're a species, they're very different types of hunters. So like being able to see them actually fully really deep dive into this, it really got me excited. And I remember when like it leaked that they were working on it, and they just refused to refer to it as Predator, like they just wouldn't. And then, but whenever I found Trachtenberg, like he was a guy that's like I started following online like 10 years ago, and because he had a YouTube channel called series called like Totally Rad Show, and they just kind of covered like movie news and shit like that. He was like their movie guy. Made a couple short films and famously made the Portal No Escape short that went viral here like 10 years ago. Yeah. Then he did 10 Cloverfield Lane, and he did that episode of Black Mirror with Wyatt Russell. And the dude's just hit after hit. He did the the pilot for The Boys. And I'm like, this dude, the dude just can't miss, man. Like he just, and like, so when he was attached to the new Predator, I'm like, this is a perfect fucking combination of things. And they were alluding to it would be in, indigenous America, like dealing with like all this stuff. I'm like, that's how you make a film like that great. Is you put limitations on what you can do with the story. Yeah. Instead of being like as open and like wide as you can make it. No, you put them in a pressure cooker. That's what you got to do. You got to take away things from them. And I think Prey really like, it gave me that kind of like exhilaration that you always wanted to see. It's about trying to outsmart something smarter than you. It's not about being stronger than it. It's about fooling it and finally beating it. And it was just like a really refreshing movie that like just, I mean, when it ended, I watched it twice in a week. I watched the original cut in English, and then I watched the Comanche cut subtitled like the next week. And it's just, it's one of those movies. It's like, man, it's like, this is, it made me excited to go back to movies and the potential of all these franchises that we all love that feel like they might have ran out of steam, that there's some kind of life that maybe if you just kind of get rid of all the baggage and just start fresh, that you could do something interesting.
And I think it's a proper time to say that that Doug is actually sponsored by Prey. He is doing the Victorian ambassador, the France version of the movie that we're speaking of. So
Renaissance period, huh?
Kicking off 2 years from now.
I was just going to say, I'm thrilled that autism wasn't the superhero. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Predator, is it where they're like, oh, the kid's autistic. Obviously, he can outsmart the Predator. I was like, oh my god, that's a really poor way to handle it. It was the one that Predators. Which one was that?
If there's a trope that can die, it was the Predator from like 2018, 2017.
Yeah. I never watched
that. If there's like
that.
one trope that can die, it's the autism special power thing. I think it's super offensive and fucked up.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, he's autistic. He can talk to aliens. It's like, come
Didn't
on,
Shane
man.
Black do that one?
Yeah, he did. That's what actually
Which
makes
is
it much
wild.
more frustrating. Is like, it's like not only was Black in the first movie, but he ghostwrite the rewrites on set. Like when they needed rewrites done while they were on set shooting the first Predator, Shane Black was who was writing it. Like if they had like punch ups on the day, Shane Black was who was writing. So a lot of those like really tasteless jokes, a lot of that like macho shit talking, a lot of it was Black coming up with that shit on set. Even though he didn't write the main script that went into production, he was the guy who was because they were developing Lethal Weapon at the time.
Right.
So Joel Silver, that was his guy. So that was what was the biggest letdown about the Predator, is the fact that it's like, here's the guy, he's part of the OG DNA of this series. Of course he's going to do a great job.
100%.
And then it didn't happen. And if it weren't for the Nice Guys, he would be on my like shit list, man. The Nice Guys is so fucking good.
It is.
It's
for sure.
fantastic.
Okay, so let's just make sure where we're at here. So Doug has actually given his 5th and 4th. I've given my 5th. Danny was holding off because he had a tie. So let's go back to Danny.
Yep. And I'm sure some of you guys might already have both of these on your list, but I've got Nope, directed by Jordan Peele, and Barbarian, directed by Zach Kreger.
Why does kids you know?
Yeah.
Biggest surprise of the year for me, man.
Oh, for sure. I think it is for everybody. Brandon and I talked about that in nauseum. So, Danny, give us some reasons that you've got Nope on your list to start, and then we'll transition to Barbarian, because I'm sure somebody's got Barbarian on their list.
So, Nope, man, a lot of people are out there online throwing stones at Nope.
Right.
This is nuts.
Well, I think that the part that upset everybody so much about it, this is a huge spoiler for Nope if you've not seen it, but the alien species, it's just like it lives in a cloud, or it like emits a cloud around it, and it's a cloud. And a lot of people were like, come on, man, what the fuck? And I think that if you were to see an alien species, it would look nothing like you would expect it to in the first place.
Right.
So by the property of making it look like something that no one expects an alien to look like, you've actually done the theory of evolution perfect justice. Now, that's just creature design. As far as like how the movie is shot, how they develop the characters, the storylines, and the contrast between like Steven Yeun and help me out, Daniel Kaluuya.
Daniel Kaluuya.
Yeah. Oh my god, man, they're so fucking good, because they're part of the same coin. They're even in the same fucking business. But Daniel Kaluuya has this deep respect for animals and understands what it means to actually break a creature and how to earn its respect. Whereas Steven Yeun is just like, let's exploit this fucking thing.
Right.
You even get the throwback to, when Steven Yeun's a child and he's on that TV show, fucking Gordy Goes Ham, or whatever the fuck the name of that scene's called.
Yeah.
That shit is fucking brutal. When that chimpanzee looks into the camera, shivers down my spine.
Yeah,
that's fucking good. So fucking
that for me was the scariest part.
Yeah, and then the way that they decide to be like, the way that they kind of suss out how to resolve their issue through the film, I thought was incredibly clever and well done. I really liked, this is a very mild spoiler, there's a bit where the thing is like following them, and it like essentially like vomits blood all over the house.
Right.
That is
my favorite scene in the entire movie, probably.
Pure nightmare fuel.
Yeah.
Like, that's so good. Just filthy, fucking dirty, nasty, fucking undercarriage, ball sweat, gross ass shit.
Absolutely.
With all this really compelling character development, man. I thought it was a really, really strong film, and I enjoyed it a lot. And Barbarian, I liked because I'm a psychopath and I like being surprised. Just a weird fucking. It's like if you get on a roller coaster, like let's say you get on the Screaming Eagle, and instead of just a regular roller coaster, it stops in that tunnel, and a monster pops out of the wall and punches you in the balls. That's a surprise. You might not like it initially, but the fact that it surprised you so much is like, I have to give credence to that, man. I just thought that movie was so much fun. I mean, it's batshit.
It's batshit.
But I liked it. Yeah, I like the fact that nobody's done that weird. Like, you remember the first time you ever saw Jeepers Creepers, and you're like, "What the fuck is this?" It kind of captures that essence of like, well, we can really just do whatever we want, then, can't we?
It's uneasy.
Let's just say it's a fucking weird monster. Great, yeah, I love it. Run with it. You know what I mean? Just fucking go nuts. And I just thought it was a super fun movie, man. I've recommended it to several people. We've yet to cover either of those on the show, but I think Doug's going to come on and we're going to cover Nope sometime real soon.
Hell yeah.
I was going to ask you guys, and I don't know how you felt about this. I grew up with a movie called Fire in the Sky that was
definitely
a huge influence over my childhood. I mean, I lived in the basement at the time. I had my own room and stuff like that. It was great, and I ended up moving upstairs because I had night terrors, so I would sleepwalk and hide in like the shower upstairs and just be standing there. Like that really fucked me up. So whenever the part where they're going through the horse stables, or Daniel Kaluuya's going through the horse stables and sees those kids that look like aliens,
right?
That truly, I told Liz
that fucked up the whole theater when I saw it.
That did not, like, for me. It's very difficult, just like everybody here, I'm sure, with horror movies to surprise or scare the shit out of. That fucking part, wow, that just like, I felt it again.
Yeah, it's weighty. It's just like, even when it's just kids out there fucking with him, it's the misdirect, the red herring or whatever. Actually, I guess that's not a red herring, just the misdirect, I guess. Yeah. Just really well done. A good executed movie. I mean, Jordan Peele, I think he's great so far. I mean, I wasn't crazy about Us, but I'm like teetering on the edge of, I can't tell you which one I actually like more, if I prefer Get Out or Nope, because I really, really enjoyed Nope. I thought it was really, really strong film.
Yeah, I think Us is just by itself. I mean, I may have differing opinions on that too, but I don't think it's the strongest film, but it's pretty badass for a fucking sophomore film.
Yeah, it's good.
It's a challenging movie.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people can't say that about their sophomore film, and then they just rag on anybody that's fucking doing decent and
right.
He's got. I don't envy the guy because being in the position that guy's in, where it's like your first movie is not only like hugely successful, even critically, like, the Academy Awards recognized it, all of the shit, the box office success of it, everything about it, but also culturally, like, that movie made such a massive impact in the zeitgeist of the culture that like you're never going to top that. Like, he'll spend the rest of his career. Luckily, it doesn't seem like he cares about that.
No,
he's not chasing that. He's not chasing to repeat that success, which could be very dangerous.
That's the only way I think you could move on with your career.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think had he not come from an industry entertainment background the way he has, I think he probably could have easily fell into that. But he's been around enough people that could probably give him the kind of advice he needs to not do that. And I'm glad that he's doing things the way he's doing, but he'll never, like, people will always compare him to his first film. I think at least for the next 15 or 20 years, everything Peele does will come back to that first film. And rightfully so, because for all things considered, it's just damn perfect. Like, it's hard to beat. But on the other end of it, it's like, to be able to just separate Get Out when you're having a conversation about his work. I think his newer films are more challenging in a lot of ways. They change, they subvert your expectations. Nope's on my honorable mention. I loved a lot of things about it. To me, the tone didn't always work the way I wished it did. Like, it didn't feel like it fully committed to one type of film, which is also what I enjoyed about it. It's a double-edged sword. It's like, I love that the third act just becomes Jaws. And that's just fucking fun. It becomes like a totally fun ass movie, and so it's like there's lots of interesting, great ideas in it. I think it's a great film, and like you said, like technologically, the day for night photography was mind blowing. I couldn't wrap my head around how they did it. Since then, I've learned how they've done it, and I'm still in awe of like the thought process to do it that way. But yeah, that's not my thing, and so is Barbarian for the same reason. Just to keep it short, it's like Barbarian's just it was definitely the most what the fuck movie I've seen this year. Like I said, when I saw the Jack Gregor did, I was like, what?
Yeah.
And then, it's just definitely one of those, the less you know, the better off you are. Like, it's definitely a movie that's just like peeling back layer after layer after layer of surprises. And if you spoil something for somebody, it just kind of like takes a lot of the fun out of like the journey of it. But yeah, I agree. Both of those movies are great.
I can talk about Nope without fully spoiling it, and I could even tell somebody what the hook of the film is, and I feel like it still has watch value. Barbarian is it's 100 times more fun if you have no fucking idea what you're in for.
Right.
And see, the only thing that I would say is the second time I watched it, I liked it that much more. Mm-hmm. Maybe because I think I saw that film.
You just like that titty, don't lie.
Yeah.
Dead old dusty titty.
Yeah, no, it's Mommy! I think the second time around and seeing people's reactions to it was my favorite part. So oftentimes that's what it is for a movie for me, is sitting back and watching other people's reactions and them liking it as much as you do, or not liking it as much as you do. I think it's just a cool experience, the whole experience of film in general. But
absolutely. So let's see where we're at. I think, Brandon, we still need to get a number 4 from you. We got one from Doug, and we got Danny's tie as well. So what do you got for number 4, Brandon?
Much like Doug was talking about before, where it's kind of almost cookie cutter in a way of a standard movie that you would do this, but Significant Other. Significant Other was actually a really good film. That's probably the only thing that Paramount Plus has brought out that's decent.
What about Blue's Clues?
Oh shit! I forgot.
The multiverse of Blue.
Oh god. Well, so many fucking multiverses. I'll get on my rant about that here soon. But it's a fantastic film. If nobody's ever seen it, it's that switch and bait type of thing where it's husband. Well, has anybody else seen it here?
I have not seen it, but it's fine. You can go ahead and
definitely going on their little trip, trying to get married, the husband or boyfriend in this is trying to propose to his girlfriend. She's not ready for commitment. They argue, and it's very much finding something in the woods and that thing taking it as a host, and also has, I forget her name. She is the badass from It Follows.
Yes, the same chick from Watcher.
The Guest, The Watcher. I mean, phenomenal job every single time that she's in something. I think that's. Go ahead.
I just wanted to comment on that. I've seen Jake Lacey, who plays her boyfriend / fiance or whatever. I've seen him in probably 10 things. This is the kind of role that I have always felt like he just fits into.
For sure.
I mean, like the way that he gets like creepy and unsettling and shit like that. He's just got the face of
a creep.
Somebody who's putting on a bit.
It feels like, 100%. I think that wouldn't have been the movie that it was if it weren't for him being in there. And the movie is a lot like, it has the feeling of, has anybody seen The Honeymoon or Honeymoon?
Yeah, it's Honeymoon.
Oh my God. It has that same fucking feeling. And I'm just a sucker for those type of films. No matter what. And the creature creation and development that they do for the characters is just gorgeous. Right. And all shot in beautiful locations. I mean, it was fantastic.
Yeah, that was like on my list of movies I wanted to catch before we got here, but I didn't miss running out of time. I'm really excited to check it out.
I got an insane watch list too, and that was on there as well. Haven't got around to that. What do you have at number 4, Danny?
All right,
on your list.
Might catch some flack for this, but I've got Weird, the Al Yankovic story, directed by Aaron Appel.
I've heard good things about that.
Man, it's a fucking blast. It's so much fun. It is just weird fucking bonkers out there. And as far as like comedy execution, like what's the funniest comedy movie you've seen in the last 3 years? Anybody? Any takers?
Good question. I don't have an answer.
Right. Yeah, you don't, because there's not a lot of really good ones. And if you haven't seen it, it is for sure worth your time if you want to have a good laugh. It's bananas. And I enjoyed every single minute of it.
Yeah, it definitely, I know a lot of people are going to hate on me for this. I never was into Weird Al. I never was.
Me neither. I knew it, but I was never like, oh, this is fucking awesome.
What was that? It was definitely. If you said it to me, I would know. I would know Gangster's Paradise, right? Everybody knows Gangster's Paradise or fucking
Amish Paradise.
Amish Paradise.
Yeah.
But like that whole film, from start to beginning, is just, or from beginning to end, is making fun of itself.
Yeah.
And Weird Al is making fun of himself that entire fucking movie, and I fucking love it.
Well, I read a thing where Weird Al actually got with the director and writer. I think Eric Appel did both.
I thought Michael Showalter directed it.
Michael Showalter?
Yeah. Maybe I misremember. I thought he was involved in the production somehow.
He very well might have been. Either way, they were going to sit down and talk about it, and he's like, "Listen, Weird Al. I'm Weird Al. This is my one stipulation. Just don't actually make it anything about my real life. Just run rampant with it." And it is so much fun. There's so many tropes that they fucking just fist cram into it.
Yeah.
And it's delightful, man. It's just it's a poke at the genre and a really delightful parody. It's good. I highly recommend it.
Me too. Weird Al. I definitely had a Weird Al phase in my middle school years. I seem to recall he had a TV, a primetime TV special where they went through and played some of his videos and stuff, and he did some concerts and things like that. So other ones that he was famous for was the Star Wars. Josh brought that up. He's on the chat tonight. And outside of that, the Star Wars one, the Anakin, this Sir Anakin guy, maybe later to be Vader, if you guys remember that one, right? Yeah. And that was about the time, shortly after the episode 1 had come out as well. So timing was good. He did the Michael Jackson parodies too. So he had his time and place, I guess.
I'm not familiar with. I'll be honest with you. I'm not familiar with 90% of the body of his work.
Yeah, I'm not either.
I've always known him in the entertainment atmosphere.
Yeah,
it has never been my thing. And as somebody who couldn't really care less about Al Yankovic, this movie is phenomenal. It is just an absolute joy to watch.
And they did it for Roku.
Yeah,
the Roku
that was weird too.
The funniest thing is I have Fire TV, so I had to download the Roku app on Fire TV to watch.
Oh, dude, you and my mom. Nobody downloads the Roku app. Did you do 2 reviews?
I was like, for this, I'll do it. I was like, you guys, how else am I going to do this? I guess here we go.
Yeah, it's so stupid. It's right in the pocket for me. That's exactly what I like. It's just so stupid and unhinged to just go. Yeah, you know what? Fuck it. Let's say he had a fling with Madonna.
The fucking pool party scene is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever fucking
so stupid.
It's dumb as shit. But it's dumb as shit. But I loved it, and Daniel Radcliffe was absolutely on fire, just having the time of
it was kind of pretty fucking insane. I mean, I like the guy anyways, but wow.
Yeah, he's really trying to kind of wash his hands of the Harry Potter stuff and do more adventurous things.
What I would love to have been a fly on the wall for his agent or whoever to contact him about that role and just see the dilemma of whether or not I should take this. I just would love to, if it was an immediate yes, if he needed some convincing, if they sent him a mixtape, I would just love to know the journey of Daniel Radcliffe becoming Weird Al.
Well, when I heard he was going to be in it as Weird Al, I was like, how the fuck is that?
How's this going to work?
As soon as you see it on screen, you're like, God damn, he's a dead ringer.
And it's one of those choices that they're like, Daniel, are you sure about this? Because your box office value is going to drop. You're purposely bringing yourself to a type of production that people are going to be nipping at the bud. You're becoming too niche,
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, he is becoming niche, but I kind of like him niche. He's got some crazy roles.
Swiss Army Man is another good one.
Crazy. I'll be honest with you, man. A lot of his body of work, I either liked because it was so off kilter for him, or I just didn't care for it. I've never really been big on Harry Potter. I didn't mind Guns Akimbo. It was lacking a little substance, but
it was a little sloppy.
Swiss Army Man, I enjoyed quite a bit.
I loved it.
What's that? Horns? Is that what it's called? Where he's growing horns or whatever? That one was all right. I didn't mind.
I actually didn't. A lot of people knocked on that one because it didn't follow the book or whatever. I mean, okay. I actually liked it whenever we saw it at Fantastic Fest. Doug, I don't know if you went to go see it or not, but I did.
Yeah, I saw it. I don't remember if we were in the same screening or not. I liked it. It didn't follow the book, though, yeah. Like, Black Phone did a better job of adapting Joe Hill, but, you know, I didn't hate
I've never been
Horns,
able
though.
to read, so I don't have that.
I'm illiterate, so yeah.
That's what Audible's for, man. Just have someone read to you, and then you go like, oh, all right.
It's this thing, Danny, where you listen with your. You got a headset. There you go. And they talk back to you. You don't talk into it. It's weird.
I like how you're talking to him like he's Helen Keller.
Yeah, sometimes you get like Liam Neeson reading to you, or Woody Harrelson, not Woody
Allen. Oh God! If you want Woody Allen, listen, you just have to get an underage girl involved. So, anywho, on to number 4. Number 4 for me. We've kind of already talked on these movies a moment ago, and that is, it's a tie for me, and that's going to be X and Pearl. I can't differentiate the two movies. Basically, were shot at the same time. A lot of people didn't know that. It came as a surprise, whenever they said the Pearl was coming out in the fall, and X had debuted in the spring of this year. So I'll just give a little quick synopsis on each movie in case you haven't seen it, run times, and some of that more particular stuff that we didn't hit on earlier. So Pearl, and I'm going to actually kind of do it chronologically in time, even though Pearl came out later. Pearl is set in 1918. A young woman on the brink of madness pursues her stardom in a desperate attempt to escape drudgery, isolation, and lovelessness in her life on her parents' farm. And then X, the synopsis of that is, in 1979, a group of young filmmakers set out to make an adult film in rural Texas, but their reclusive elderly hosts catch them in the act, and the cast finds themselves fighting for their lives. So Pearl, like I mentioned earlier, it came out in the fall, September 2022 this year. Runtime's an hour and 42 minutes. Budget was $1 million, and they made 9.4 at the box office. So more than made up their money. And just the acting of Mia Goth in that movie alone is worth the price of admission. She puts on a clinic, and she definitely stands out more so in Pearl than X. X is more of an ensemble presentation, in my opinion, but Pearl is very centric around her and that character specifically. So, and this is kind of a spoiler if you haven't seen these movies, but Pearl turns out to be one of these elderly hosts in X. So getting to X, that came out in March of this year, 106 minutes. It also had a $1 million budget, and it made $15.1 million at the box office. So again, it murdered, 15 times the amount of its budget. And so that would be considered a success. And it's really hard to make R-rated movies and then to be an overwhelming success financially in many instances. But, Ty West being the director, we've all talked about it. We're fans of him and his worth. And then, of course, in X, Brandon mentioned this earlier, Brittany Snow, wink, wink, nod, nod, Mia Goth, and then you get to see Kid Cudi's tire iron. So, if you're into that sort of thing, he's got a knee slapper, boys. And my wife was drooling when that scene came on. I don't know about yours. Jenna Ortega is also in this.
I think it touched his toes. Pretty sure it touched his toes.
Damn near. But I love a good slasher type movie. X definitely fits that genre, and in some respects, and I like it. Has its batshit crazy moments as well. But a lot of the gore, the kill scenes, the stabbing scenes were right up my alley. A lot of excessive and the practical effects were used at times too, which I always have an appreciation for. But yeah, I'm really excited. They're going to be coming out with a third installment for this franchise, Maxine. I think perhaps this year. So really looking forward to that, and I believe that that's essentially going to be the story of Maxine once she's escaped the tragedies that took place in X. So that is my number 4. Everybody's got their number 4 in, right?
So it's a great pick, yeah. I just wanted to spitball something off you were saying, Barry.
Go ahead.
One thing that I found to be really, really impressive about those two films, like back to back, is that Pearl is such a wild departure from X. Like it almost doesn't even read as a prequel if you didn't know about the story like the
Right.
story-related stuff and the casting and stuff like that. If you had just seen the movie separately 5 years apart, let's say, you might never connect the dots because the production of Pearl with the musical numbers and how she's kind of fanciful about it, and of course there are callbacks.
Right.
That's what helps them, that connective tissue. But man, I thought the overall, like, even just the style in which it was put together, scene to scene,
Right.
how they made Pearl versus how Mia Goth is cast in X as Maxine.
Right.
They're so wildly different, and they work so well. Just thought it was really impressive. I really, really liked them, and I had a hard time not putting them on this list.
Yeah, and Pearl 2...
I figured somebody else would bring them up. So
Pearl 2 has a lot of homages with some of the shots, some of the editing, transition scenes, some of the framing of the characters at times. There's a lot of 50s TV and 60s TV riddled throughout Pearl. And that's another reason that I like it as well. It's got kind of that nostalgia feel, but it's kind of done in irony. It's trying to give you that nostalgic, old-timey feel on purpose, but also the fact that you're seeing her take a pitchfork to a fucking duck and just murdering it straight up, in the same scene. So it's not something that you would see in those viewing experiences in the 50s and 60s too. So there's a lot of irony rubbed in there. So now that everybody's got 5 and 4 in, I wanted to jump to one of our other discussion topics just to break up the list talk. And I would like to talk about everybody's male performance of the year. Who do you think is a standout performance from a male actor this year? You can make a case for anybody for any reason. It doesn't matter to me. And I will start with Doug. Doug, who do you have as your male performance of the year?
I think really, we're right up on the cusp of the Academy Award nominations being announced, and I would definitely not be shocked to find Colin Farrell getting best.
100%.
I thought you were going to say Kid Cudi's penis.
He gets all the awards for sure.
Yeah. I think Colin Farrell definitely is up there. In my honorable mentions, I have The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. I think that's definitely Cage in that movie could easily be a gimmick, but I think he brings a kind of levity to that performance, and in a way that only it's a very smart performance and it's super well done. It's not him just playing himself, but I think that'll fly over a lot of people's heads. So that would be a choice that I would make, but I don't think it'll connect with people that way. However, I think that Pedro Pascal was fucking absolutely delightful in it.
100%.
Because he charms you in such a way that's so pure and innocent that it makes the movie just move so much. You're more committed because you really don't want his feelings to be hurt, and you believe in him the way almost like he's a 5-year-old in a grown man's body. So well, those two, absolutely fantastic. I would also can't get enough of Daniel Craig, his performances as Benoit Blanc. That fucking accent as soon as it starts up, I'm just I'm here for you. Sign me up. Give me 5 more of those, man.
100%.
Yeah, I'd take another 20 of these, man. I honestly, I mean, not to talk about movies in this category, but it's just that man does no wrong with that role. He destroys it.
Dude, the murder mystery's on a renaissance, man. We're going to start getting more. There's a lot more video game murder mystery stuff coming out recently.
Yep.
Much like the following suit to the Pinocchio renaissance.
Yeah.
Now we're getting in murder mystery town, and I'm here for it. I'm loving it.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to second.
Of course, yeah. I don't want to also dismiss. I think Brendan Gleeson has got a lot of weight too for that same. Just I feel like equal
other side of the coin for sure.
Yep, he does something that's probably even more difficult to do than what Colin Farrell does in it.
You're gonna talk shit about me saying 2 movies tied, but then this motherfucker's gonna name every goddamn fucking male performer this year. Hey,
he said honorable mention. Yeah, at least he qualified it.
He said 3 honorable mentions.
I called out
just because he came from France.
I gave one legitimate and then some honorable mentions.
Oh yeah. Well, we asked for this, Doug. Thank you.
I just want to acknowledge some of the activity that we have going on Twitch from our listeners right now. There's a lot of folks that are really commenting on Kid Cudi's cock. Great music, but even better tire iron. I like that line from GG Sounds. So, yes, very, very fantastic. I'm all about that. Yeah, so Kid Cudi's Tire Iron is a big hit with the audience, guys.
You can fucking crush beer cans with that thing. You know what I mean?
Without question. I mean,
if you see it, there's no way away.
I'm going to second Doug's male nomination. That's who I have down, Colin Farrell. But I also want to take in consideration it's obviously for Banshees, but you have to think he was in The Batman this year in an unrecognizable performance, which was incredible as the Penguin. Also, After Yang. After Yang is the drama of the year as far as I'm concerned, and it is 100% carried by Colin Farrell and is a fantastic A24 joint. If you guys haven't seen it, check it out. But his acting in that is fantastic as well. But what he does in Banshees of Inisherin is just remarkable. And I understand he has a good cast of characters to work with. Brendan Gleeson is opposite in the film, and these guys can do no wrong. The chemistry that they have is unmatched. I know that Brandon and Danny recently covered In Bruges on Danny's podcast. It's just 2 movies. And, they talk about the chemistry there on that episode as well. But these 2 actors together, I hope this isn't the end of it. Because every time that they've worked together opposite one another, it's been complete magic. And I'm here for it every time.
Yeah, same thing with Billy Kogan. Is it Kogan?
Keegan.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm getting mixed. All right, we'll go with Keegan Kogan. Him also phenomenal. And I watched an interview where he was talking about how much Colin Farrell has helped him, and he sees him as this big brother figure, and they kind of pal around and stuff like that. And I think the 3 of them together collectively worked really well.
Yeah, for sure. And his performance in that in a supporting role is pretty underrated too. I think that subtly he comes off as very annoying, obviously at first, but subtly you start to feel for him more and more as you understand his backstory, and you see moments of him actually being a sweetheart of a person as well, and it really rounds out his character even more. So it adds a lot of depth to his character in the film too. So Barry Kogan's character in that is one to watch as well, for sure. Brandon, who do you have for your male performance of the year?
Well, we're starting a trend. I think it's just going to go to the very end. I think I've loved Colin Farrell for many, many, many years, even before In Bruges. But I think that right now, just his diversity in his roles and what he has done this year alone. We've mentioned all these things about Banshees, but it is a thing between him and Brendan Gleeson because they're perfect together. That would be my 1 and 2 is because they riff off of each other so well. It's so natural. You can feel it whenever you're watching them perform together, and it's I don't remember seeing him in a role where he's played like this insecure dummy on he's just so good at it. And I don't think that there's ever been anything that I've truly hated that he's been in. I think he's remarkable. And at first, whenever I heard about, there was a 15-minute standing ovation for him, and
Right.
And I was like, okay, well, you guys are kind of killing it for me. But watching it, he's an artist. I love it. And anytime that Billy Kogan is in, Keegan Kogan has ever been in anything as of late, he's on fire, fucking creepy weirdo or goofy, dumb idiot. But he fills those roles so well, and then goes and does a film with Colin Farrell again and does the Batman and has a little snippet in there too with him being the Joker. I think both of those guys and Brendan Gleeson should go down as a fucking icon. I think he's amazing in anything he does.
And father of Domhnall Gleeson too, another fine actor.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. Danny, do you have anybody specifically that you want to call out for male performance of the year?
Well, I'd like to say that I knew that all of you were going to pick Colin Farrell. And I did have a sneaking suspicion it would come up between someone here. So I just went all in on Daniel Radcliffe as fucking Yankovic. He's having so much fun. And is it the best, best overall acting performance, man, I really don't know. I don't think so, to be frank.
Yeah.
But it is, in my opinion, one of the most breakout off-type characters that he's ever played, and I was very, very surprised with it. So,
I respect it.
That's what I got. Performance of the year? I don't think so. I think I'd probably have to give it to Ralph Fiennes for The Menu.
Yeah, Ralph Fiennes is something else in The Menu too. Let's move on back to the list, guys. So we're going to go with our number 3 picks now. And while we're on you, Danny, let's just go with you, Danny. What do you got at your number 3?
Banshees of Inisherin.
All righty.
So is that higher or lower for you, Barrett?
That's closer to where I have it than Doug was. Still not quite
really
there.
Good, man. I mostly was impressed with how fucking hilarious it is.
Yeah.
And how dark it gets.
Yes.
And there's a really nice balance there because the humor that is in it is pretty light for the most part. It's the things that are funny about it are like they're very jovial. They're almost a little juvenile. How they're quaint. You know what I mean? But then you've got. I don't want to spoil any of the hook for this though. When Brendan Gleeson makes a promise and starts to fulfill it,
right, it
gets real dark real fast.
Yes.
And the closer you get to the ending, it becomes this really what you thought was kind of a like ha 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 ha. It turns out that it's not. It's a march into some pretty sad shit.
Did anybody else feel this way when they were watching it? Like I felt like you knew that eventually Brendan Gleeson was going to deliver on that promise. However, you never felt like it was coming. You know, like they teased it all along. He kept giving Colin Farrell's character these second chances. And then eventually he decided to enforce it. It was like a hard left turn at that point. Like Danny said, it was definitely a mood change. The temperature changed in the room for sure. Yeah, and you could see it in his character too.
And it feels like an old wives' tale or like a Greek tragedy in some ways where it's 100%. It's like a lesson is to be learned from this. And I think that's why I love it so much. And I did not include that on my list because I knew everybody was going to pick that, so I can feel Danny on that. I think it's number 1 for me overall, just because like I told Danny with In Bruges, it's my number 1 movie of all time. It's just the amount that I can watch something over and over and over again is just a pleasure. And his dialogue, man, is unmatched in Banshees. Unmatched. Yeah. He's perfect at it. I mean, especially in comedic performances. Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, and they really get down. So the Banshees of Inisherin is, of course, set in the 1920s. There's Civil War going on. And but that is just a backdrop to the story, which seems odd that these people's lives could potentially be in peril the entire time, but they're kind of isolated on a little island off the coast. But you can see, cannon fire in the background and everything else. It really adds a complexity to the temperature and the mood of the movie as well, I think. So, yeah, it's a strong flick for sure, without question.
I also want to give it up to Carrie Condon in that film, playing Colin Farrell's sister.
Right.
She was great too, and she's not in it
fantastic
very long, but she brought a lot of personal touch to something that otherwise 100%. would have felt just there as it was like decorative, but she feels natural. They have good banter. You believe their relationship. They just they work really well together
and fully in the story. There's never a point where you forget about her.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite scenes in the whole film is her and Barry Keoghan on the side of the, like, I guess, lock or whatever you want to call it.
I love
when he's talking, he's telling her how he feels about her. And it's interesting because, like, it's, there's almost no women in the movie. And it's interesting to have that complexity. I mean, this year, like, later on, one of my other films, there's a moment like this, too, where there's little moments in a few films that I've seen this year where there's like this interesting humanity that they don't really like spend a lot of time on, but it's kind of like exposes things about us as people that's always interesting. And to me, it's like that film. He's her sister, or she's a sister. She's not really like she's a plot device to try to fix things. But in that scene, it's like no one has ever like it's interesting because it's like you see her being desired, and that's something that's not present in the rest of the film. And
Right.
it's really interesting because it's also very realistic. With that few women, there would definitely be such an awkward, inappropriate kind of interaction. And I just thought that was kind of interesting that they didn't spend a lot of time on it, but it definitely hit like a nice other side of the coin to that story that, you know, you wouldn't got. Like, I love that they have that, and it humanizes, you know, Barry Keoghan's character pretty significantly for what ends up happening with the film.
Because for the first whole half of it, you're like, this guy's a fucking shithead.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he's very like throwaway. Like, oh, he's the village asshole. It's just what he is. He's just a little creep.
And great writing is always about making sure that your character's wants and needs are established. And you have to, no matter how insignificant the character is, they all want something else. There's no point to have them there. And that was a great opportunity to take a character who's like, you think you understand, but add complexity to him in a way that you weren't ready for. So, you know, I mean, Martin McDonagh just can't miss, man. Like, the guy just fucking home run every time.
Yeah, I agree for sure. And this to me, I know Brandon and I talked about it. Banshees is, in my opinion, the closest that he's going to get to In Bruges for me as far as favorite movies of his. Easy. But, you know, it's like splitting frog hairs, if you will.
Oh,
like we say here in the South.
It's like, I don't know. It's like you get 4 perfect movies. Like, how do you fucking top them?
Right. Exactly. All right. What do you have at number 3? Danny? I think you just gave it. Okay. I'm sorry.
I think
Doug.
Did you part?
Number 3, I have Watcher.
Okay.
From Chloe Okuna. Not The Watcher on Netflix, but the Micah Monroe movie. I mean, honestly, like, I went into it, like, hearing great things. I was kind of nervous it would just be a rehash of Rear Window, kind of like Disturbia, or a lot of these, like, I saw something I shouldn't see thrillers you get.
Right.
But there was an added layer of interesting choices made, like by placing it in Budapest and like putting her in an alien environment, isolating her socially and culturally, I think was a really interesting choice. I think Bern Gorman's such an interesting actor. He has one of those faces and presences that's kind of stoic and very stark at the same time. Like, you look at him, he stands out, but he also can be threatening or, you know, enlightening, depending on how you cast him, how he presents himself. He could be a wonderfully delightful actor to watch and fun. Right. But then when he can also be like this kind of character where it's like him just watching you is enough to like make you feel alarmed about what you're doing. But the film has such an interesting pace and such a real incredible way of continually pushing the envelope just a little further. Like, as soon as you start to like settle into the type of movie you think it is, they move the goalpost a little bit for you. And ultimately, like, I really coming back to this list, I was like, okay, like, I really I guess ultimately want to select movies that made an emotional, physical impact on me. Like, at some point during the film, I literally felt something unique and different. You know, there's so many good films this year. Like, it's just been one of those incredible cinema years where just constantly, it was so fucking hard to like whittle down 5 movies. Because there's so many, though. Even in our honorable mentions on you guys' list, you have so many great choices. But I wanted to really, like, you know, with this one, it was like that third act and the way the movie climaxes and finishes it left my jaw dropped. I couldn't believe the choices that were being made. They felt like massive risks. They felt like things I haven't seen before. It fucking literally shocked me in a way I hadn't been shocked in a while. And with that said, it just left like literally the last 8 to 10 minutes of the film will just fucking rocks you.
Yes.
And I love that about it.
Yeah, I actually just watched that here in the last 2 weeks or so, I want to say. And I know we had, after you'd just seen it, Doug, you asked me if I'd seen it. We little DMing back and forth. I believe the film's edited by somebody from St. Louis, is it not? Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Michael Black, I think.
Okay.
He's friends with Andy and those guys.
Yeah, I think you may have even done an episode of the podcast with them on Destroy the Brain. Yeah. So I was like a little apprehensive too initially, you know, going to see this movie because I think a movie with Amy Adams with a similar concept had come out here in the last year or so as well, which I never watched. But I was confusing the two of the movies, and I was like, I don't know. I don't need to see another movie trying to be Rear Window. But it's definitely got the homages to Hitchcock and his work, but it's its own thing at the same time. And I totally agree. The ending, you know, and not a lot of dialogue in the movie overall, too, if you take that into consideration. But to me, it was a perfect marriage of Christopher Nolan's Following, and Rear Window. So, and those are both
so
fantastic films.
Because clearly Akuna's VHS segment, the Ratma thing, couldn't be more different than this. They're so radically different.
Right, for sure. All right, Brandon, what you got at number 3, sir?
Number 3 is Speak No Evil. I know that this was on a lot of top lists for the year. It was for horror films. It felt very real to me and very uncomfortable. And like Doug said, and I think we can all say this too, is we're of the movie watchers that aren't necessarily out there for just a good time, but something that will impact us in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Speak No Evil, having come from Europe, lived there for 3 years, and already feeling like an alien to a new land. It's very, you can fall into these traps of the niceties of people and think they seem like your best friend now. Oh, great. And then you start to notice things that are a little bit off, and those bells in your head start clicking or start dinging. And have any of you guys seen it yet?
I've not seen that, and
I've not
I've
seen
not
it yet.
seen Watchers, so I've added both of those to my list since we've been sitting here.
It's a family that meets on vacation with another family. They're like, hey, let's get your number, let's talk later. And then they end up visiting.
Oh, it's got John Cena in it. I've seen this shit.
Yeah, he's invisible the entire time.
That's a joke. They're not all.
But it just leads to this. There's no happiness whatsoever, and it just leads to this grotesque end. And it just really hit me hard. I mean, it really surprised me. I did not expect for that much darkness to interlude and that much realness.
Yeah, that movie didn't really land on my radar until the last couple of weeks. I just saw the trailer in the last 2 or 3 weeks, I want to say. So I haven't gotten around to watching that one yet, but that's definitely something that's on my watch list. I've heard a lot of good things about
it's on my list, but it's kind of what I call the Requiem for a Dream list, which is the when I'm ready to like fucking destroy my mood.
Yeah.
That's basically like the 3 people I know that have really, really like gotten deep with me about it. Without spoiling anything beyond like your pitch right there, Brandon.
Yeah, I don't want to give you any.
All of them are like it's literally like funny games level of like cultural fucking with you, like what's acceptable to do, what's not acceptable. And I understand that it's like a lot of it's like 2 different European cultures clashing.
Yeah,
and then
definitely.
But yeah, like everyone has been like, it is one of the nastiest, meanest movies that I've seen. And then like you shouldn't watch it if you're expecting to like have a good time, and when you're done, like to just kind of like go home and go straight to bed or whatever. Then instead you'll have to probably like have a minute to decompress.
Well, and what's even more fucked up is I have something worse than that on my honorable mentions that I would feel guilty putting it on my top 5 if I did. So it's.
I bet I could guess.
That have been out.
All right, so I'm going to give my number 3 now, and then we will talk about our female performances of the year as well as a disappointment for us of the year after that. So my number 3 is Mad God by Phil Triplett, a movie that essentially took almost 3 decades, I believe, in making, well over 20 years. The synopsis of Mad God is equipped with a gas mask and a crumbling map, the assassin, an ironclad humanoid, descends into rusty peril of the underworld, and with grime, blood, and unsettling monstrosities. As the stealthy invader meanders through the labyrinth of a post-apocalyptic wasteland on a mysterious mission, going deeper and deeper into a nightmarish realm, the assassin gradually reaches his final destination, the heart of this grotesque tower of torture. But what cruel, vindictive deity allows fear and suffering to take its most complete creation further and further into despair? Only a mad god would revel in humankind's ordeal. So that's just kind of the synopsis of the movie, the byline of the movie, if you will. I'm just going to get more personal with why I like it, and that is that the universe building that is done in this movie is just absolutely insane. It's all kind of stop motion animation type stuff, and it's just the descent. The movie starts with the descent of the assassin down into lower levels of realms. And I'd say it's a good 20 minutes. I don't know if anybody else has seen it. Brandon, I know you've seen it.
I am.
Yeah, and it just the timing of just that descent and all of these different layers to the earth that you're seeing is just remarkable. And as he starts to encounter one creature and then another creature, so there's different types of humanoid creatures and various types of creatures that he comes across as he descends down further and further. And I think really just the impression that you're supposed to get as a viewer, there's a lot left for interpretation. There's definitely religious overtones. It starts off with a quote from, I believe it's Leviticus. Yeah, Leviticus 26. And it's essentially depicts what God had to say to the people post the Tower of Babel incident, and it really depicts that wrathful God, if you will, in the Old Testament, and that's kind of what this film piggybacks on, is that and it seems like something that's not too far distant in the future for us, quite frankly, but civilization is met its demise, and what little's left behind is trying to put the pieces back together, and it is a trip. This movie is a trip. It's an hour and 24 minutes, I believe. Yeah, it came out over the summer on Shudder, and without Shudder, I don't know that we get movies like this. So I mean, I got to make my commercial here for Shudder right now. I mean, there's a lot of films that get put on Shudder that always end up in my top 10 or 5 movies of the year that I don't think would have gotten backing otherwise or exposure otherwise.
Yeah, I'm glad that they kept it going along, because Shudder there for a while was just a collection of horror movies, but then they started producing. Right. Fuck me.
Yeah, I mean, it's like as long as they've been running, I mean, they definitely, their subscriber base has grown, and they're being smart about the films they're putting on there, and they're able to get films that I wouldn't expect. Like in my honorable mentions, I have Resurrection. Have you guys seen that with Rebecca Hall and Tim Roth?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Talk about just a fucking absolutely bonkers ending. Yeah, I could not imagine trying to pass that movie off as a mainstream release in any capacity. Like that ending 100%. Would have 90% of the crowd pissed off and leaving. Yeah. However, people like us, it's like, fuck, I need more of that. That's just punch me right in the fucking face. Yeah, but with that said, I mean, they've always hand curated. Like it's not based on an algorithm. It's people out here really just like working hard to find films that they think that their people would want to see. And recently, with that said, like I know I'm talking to you guys. Some of you probably already know this. Some of the listeners, future listeners, Shudder is recently going through a lot of fucking problems. They almost literally closed it down real recently.
Yeah.
And so like it's one of those situations where it's like they have a subscriber base and they're doing fine, but AMC is not sure about what to do with them. So it's one of those things like if you haven't subscribed, man, you're really fucking missing out. It's like $4.99 a month. It's like it's less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks, man. Like there's films that are like evergreen on there. Like at any given time for like the last 4 or 5, I've had it since they launched it.
Right.
And at any given time, you could jump on there and watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or it's there's some films that are just on there forever. Mandy's on there forever. So it's like there's films you can just come back to time and again, and then they're always evolving and adding, and sometimes they do have to lose things, but they're always kind of coming back and getting like shit that you want to see. They're curating stuff. It's totally fucking worth $5.
Yeah, I agree totally. And Mad God is just an otherworldly film, and kind of back to some comments that you made earlier, Doug, too, and Brandon made these comments as well. Is like we've seen so many movies. We're looking for movies to have an impact on us. This movie has like no dialogue in it whatsoever. It's left up to a lot of interpretation, although there's a lot of literal things going on the screen. But it's been a while since I've seen a movie and it really had a unique impact on me like this film did. And I know earlier you guys said a lot of incredible movies have come out this year. I probably haven't watched as many as you guys. I mentioned in the show, I've been kind of stuck on TV shows myself with a newborn around. But But actually, this year was a little difficult for me in some senses to put lists together because I didn't feel like I saw a lot of original films or films that had a great impact on me. And those are my qualifiers for putting, a movie on my list and where it ranks at also. So
I want to say I have sat down to watch Phil Tippett's Mad God 4 fucking times, and not once have been able to get more than 3 minutes into it, and something comes up, and have had to fucking turn it off. So you've got me more amped to watch it now. So we're gonna do attempt number 5 here in the next couple of days.
It's a quick
super
watch.
Short. It's like just over an hour. Because it's stop motion. Like they're never really long movies. With that said, Barrett, I watched it last year. Was it last year? For Fantastic Fest's online.
Yeah, it debuted on a film festival, I know.
Yeah, I ended up doing the online thing, and it played one of them, and I watched it, and I can't say I loved it. I'm honestly very stoked that you did, though, because, it's really, truly a labor of love. It was one of the grossest movies I've ever seen, which is fucked up because I love gross movies.
Right.
I love some Greasy Strangler. I love shit like that. But for some reason, the amount of diarrhea and bodily fluids, I was just like, man, I can't fucking do this.
Dude,
so, but because of your high praise, I'm going to literally give it another chance. I'm going to try my best.
The scene
gave me a lot of inspiration just for doing the shit that I do. It's inspiring, man.
The scene where they're digging inside the assassin when he gets captured, and this isn't really giving anything away, that alone, just the probing of his insides and the things that they're pulling out in mass and in quantity is absurd. But also, it's one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen in a movie. So it's wild. I'm convinced this motherfucker has burnt his brain out on acid or something. There's no reasonable explanation to how can you come up with this? I don't know. But I love it. And I feel like, in many ways, this is going to pivot in a different discussion later. It's probably going to get everybody pissed off at me. I would have liked to seen this guy's take on Hellraiser if this is the type of shit that he's going to produce all the time.
I would love that.
That would be fantastic.
If you would have gave me a Phil Tippett Hellraiser circa 1990,
yeah,
I would have been all in on it. But he was doing Jurassic Park for 5 fucking years. So, we got that at least too.
Yeah. For sure. Okay, guys, let's talk about female performance of the year because I kind of glossed over that earlier, and then we'll get to a disappointment of this year for ourselves. I'm just going to start this off because I kind of already made this comment earlier, and that's Mia Goth is my female performance of the year. Her monologue at toward the end of the movie with her sister-in-law sitting at the dinner table is one of the most captivating monologues I've ever seen, male or female, in film in a long-ass time. And I think that you can actually relate with her character in many ways too. Some of the things that she's saying, if you've ever lived kind of a sheltered lifestyle, if you will, and I've talked about it here on the show before too. I didn't get out much until my late teenage, nearly graduating high school years. Lived a little bit of a sheltered life myself. So some of the things that she talks about and the despair that she feels and things like that. I could kind of relate to that, even though this chick's back crazy. She's saying a lot of stuff that adds up. And, it's just an incredible scene to see her face, just the minutia, just the minute details of her acting, her physical performance. She tells a story with her face, not just with her words. There's a lot of physical acting that's going on. And she's sitting at a dinner table, and with a close-up shot of her face. I mean, so it's just really incredible and encapsulating. And, you forget that she's even talking to somebody. The monologue just goes on you feel like she's talking to you directly. And I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it right now. So Mia Goth, Pearl, fantastic acting, specifically the monologue scene. Sign Seal delivers it for me. If she doesn't get nominated, we riot. We're going to riot, boys.
I'm sorry. I didn't get to close Pearl before this. So I knew that it would be somewhere on my list because X is definitely honorable mentions. It very much came so close to cracking the top 5. It was a fucking incredible movie. I've been excited to see Pearl, and I just have missed. Somehow it's just always never right there when I'm ready to watch it.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, Danny, do you have a female performance of the year that you want to nominate? Danny, you're muted. Oh, did we lose him again? Yeah, we lost Danny. Yeah. All right. Well, let me go ahead and move on to Brandon while we wait for Danny to get back on. Brandon, what's your female performance of the year?
Much like you were saying with Mia Goth, I think Mika Monroe in her physical performance during Watcher was phenomenal. I
agree.
I figured that a lot of people would also have Watcher on the list. I love that movie as well, but I think her performance really makes that. And I would even, the way that she conveys, and she's really good at showing how terrified she is or what she's feeling during that moment. It's red all over her face. I mean, and I love her, man. I think she's phenomenal in anything she does, and especially in The Watcher.
All right.
It's sweet, but I loved it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, her acting is probably going to be overlooked and slightly underrated. But, she did a great performance from her as well. Danny's back with us. So, Mr. Danny, what do you have as your female performance of the year, sir? Yeah, he's freezing on us. Danny's getting some technical difficulties here.
I like to imagine that's just how he looks.
Yeah.
He's just. I think that's what he looks like whenever he's on the shitter.
Danny's giving us his performance of the year.
Like we're staring. He's staring at us. And we're staring back into the void.
He's starting to come back.
Understand. What did I eat again? That caused this pain.
Can you even hear us? Not if you can hear us.
Yay! All right. Very good. Good. I love it.
Okay, a lot of commentary there, Danny.
Man, I still have a fucking crazy amount of echo. So just quick side note, I do all my recording on a totally different rig, and I switch rigs just to do this, which I never do. So it's always like, something's not, got to move a knob somewhere. Anyway, what did I miss? Catch me up.
So we were just nominating our female performance of the year, making our case, our arguments. I chose Mia Goth from Pearl specifically, and said all signed, sealed, delivered. Just the monologue itself. Brandon nominated the young lady from Watcher as well, and another good solid performance of the year.
Is that Micah Monroe?
I
hadn't seen it. Yeah. Okay.
Yep, that's her. So who do you got, Danny?
I have got Stephanie Sue from Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yep. That's a runner-up for me.
Wonderful.
Good choice.
It is, although I find that I am way more weepy in my old age than I ever was as a younger man, it is rare that I can watch a thing that will have me like laughing out loud, like snorting and pausing it to go back to make sure I didn't miss anything else. And then 5 minutes later, just have me by the heartstrings, and just making me want to straight up weep because it's so moving.
Yeah,
and all the while with so much style and flair, and you everything about her character, her playing that character as Joy in that film. She sells every second of it from the moment that she walks on screen. You can tell that her and her mother are estranged. You can you can feel all these feelings just from the expressions on her face. And I have never seen her in another thing, and she just absolutely fucking floored me.
Yeah, that was a very strong performance as well. I agree with you. I feel like in many ways she made the film. And I feel like, well, with that film in and of itself too, it kind of addresses some of those. I guess I would say Asian stereotypes, kind of the mother-daughter dynamic in particular, is a big theme of that movie in and of itself. So, and she showed a lot of range as an actress, of course, with it kind of being a multiverse type thing as well. So she played different incarnations and variations of herself at times too. So, that's a very good pick too. Doug, were you in the same boat as me, or do you have a different nomination for Female of the Year?
Female of the Year for me, I think obviously Michelle Yeoh is going to clean up this year. That's my personal feeling.
Okay.
I think as far as the mainstream world is just going to hand her over, wonderful, oyster. But
as far as like my personal choice for the year, it's like I think Rebecca Hall in Resurrection was just an absolute fucking.
She's a great actress.
She's
Yeah.
so fucking good. If there's like an actress who can just literally embody grief and heartbreak, it's Rebecca Hall. She just wears it in such a way that's like you feel it on her. Like, God, I don't know how old she is, but fuck, I wouldn't be shocked if like in a couple of years she looks like she's 100. But she's so incredible, and there's like that wonderful scene. I mean, it's not a wonderful scene; it's super fucked up. But there's a 9-minute monologue from her in Resurrection that's just a slow camera pushing, nothing else. She explains her background to one of the other characters. Camera doesn't cut. She tells you the most fucked up, heartbreaking story you'll ever hear in one long 9. And it doesn't feel long at all. You're just completely hanging on every word. No cuts. 9 minutes. Incredible.
Right. Yeah, Rebecca Hall to me is one of the best actresses doing it right now. It's certainly my top 5 is active actresses.
Wasn't she in another movie this year where she was in a house?
That was last year. Yeah, The Night House, which is
The Night House is another
David Bruckner film.
Yeah,
phenomenal.
Yeah. Same thing. Yeah, she just fucking owns every frame she's
in. She killed it in that for sure. Especially again displaying kind of the grief in her character was a strong spot. Alrighty, so we've got our female performances out of the way. Let's get into a controversial one, guys. Let's talk disappointment of the year. Now, you are more than welcome to just shit on something. This is the way I approach disappointments. And that is, I had an expectation that was not delivered upon, and that deficit is pretty decent. So for me, I always approach these things like, okay, I thought this was going to be good or perhaps the best thing to come out this year, and it didn't even come close to delivering that, or was a huge drop-off. You guys are welcome to approach it that way if you'd like, to each their own. And I will start with Brandon. What was a disappointment for you?
Oh, you're going to start with me?
Jesus. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've always wanted to more about. I've always wanted to go through Morbin time together, and I felt like we had a really strong chance with that great actor Jared Leto that is clearly not trying to start a cult.
Right.
Or ruin people's lives. Fuck you, Morbius. You're going to be good. You look terrible from the very beginning. I honestly didn't. The one thing that I was having trouble with the most on this time around was disappointments. I think the first time I watched Barbarian for me was a little bit of I think I was so blown away by the what the fuck that I didn't ever fully appreciate it. And I think I was in a different headspace during that time whenever I watched it. I would have to say that it would be Barbarian. The second time through was way better. I still liked it both times, but it was just missing a little zhuzh for me. And I heard all this buildup about it. Yeah. I've been following it for a while, and then it just kind of hurt my feelings the first time. But after rewatching, it was phenomenal. I think it's I think it's going to be a cult classic before too long.
I agree.
I think it'll really shine in the next 10 years.
Yeah, I can definitely see it getting a cult phenomenon behind it beyond, there's movie nerds like us that love it, out the gate, but I think it's going to get some more popularity too. All right, Danny, what do you got? What's a disappointment for you this year?
Biggest disappointment of the year. Look, I like a lot of things about movies, but I like strong dramatic stuff. I like stuff that's got a good twist or a last minute reveal. I have grown way more fond of horror in the last year, but my favorite genre always will be anything that can make me and the people around me laugh. I love being surrounded by laughter and hearing it. You know what I mean? It makes my heart feel nice. And when I heard that Jamie Foxx was going to be a blue-collar vampire hunter, I got so fucking excited. And you got Jamie fucking Foxx, motherfucker Jones, to just be a blue collar vampire hunter, that he's like, oh, maybe I'm a pool boy. No, I'm here to get you. That's a fucking amazing get for a script, and for him to say yes, and then you make this movie, and it's just fucking nothing. Like, it's nothing. It's 4 minutes of cool creature design, and that's about it.
Yep.
You could have done something incredible with it, and instead it's very average, if not nothing at all. So I'm going to go with Day Shift.
Okay. Day Shift from Danny on the disappointments of the year. Doug, what do you got on your disappointment?
That was rough.
Disappointments was hard to fucking land on, man. Like, it's just like, there's shit like, I felt like Halloween Kills helped soften the blow for Halloween Ends sucking. Like, I literally went in and been like, all right, let's close this out knowing this is going to suck.
Fucking nailed it.
Yeah, I'm just like, all right, so like, I can't get upset because I know I'm going into something horrible.
Yeah.
So like, that was definitely on my, like, you know, I can't even like say that was there on the radar for that. Hellraiser wasn't quite a disappointment for me. It wasn't a total fucking home run either. Gray Man, I didn't give a shit about. That was on my list. I tried it. I couldn't even finish. It was very boring. Firestarter was definitely like, I'm like, this could be interesting, but I also don't really want that movie.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and say my fucking disappointment of the year was Terrifier 2.
Okay.
Wow.
Because I didn't love the first Terrifier. There was a shitload of issues with it with me. Didn't care about any of the characters. It was just shock value to me, and it's like, I'm like, all right, I get it. If like you're a gore hound, sure, this is for you. I love some good gore, but I also like want some steak, and I don't feel like there's any steak in it. If like it's just people getting slaughtered with no real like development at all, like sure, you know, great effects showcase. That's what the first Terrifier was to me. The clown performer, the guy doing Art the Clown, wonderful. Fucking honestly, really did a great job. Like the writing didn't give him enough to do. Like as far as like the story didn't give him enough to do. Yeah. Terrifier 2, man, come out surprising everybody. Like it even got me hyped, going like, hold on. This $1 million movie, I think it was like a $600,000 budget movie, went on to make like $20 million in the theater. It's a sequel to a movie most of these people going to see that probably have never seen.
Yep.
It had like a fucking 90% on Rotten Tomatoes with like a lot of reviews, not just like 1 or 2 horror sites or something or reviewers. It was like this fucking like dark horse this summer that I'm like, okay, like what the fuck's happened? It had this absurd runtime. It was like 2 hours and 25 minutes. And I'm like, okay, like, all right, this is very fucking unexpected. I am just going to have to. And like, and there's a set piece. There's one kill that'll just blow your fucking mind. And I'm like, all right, cool. All right. So, and then finally got to watch it. And it just like, it felt super uneven to me. Like, I felt like a lot of the performances are super inconsistent. Oftentimes felt like the lead actress's age was changing dramatically. Like, I felt like those times I was watching her, she was like 19. Other times she felt 25. And it just felt like it was shot over the course of like 3 years at a really bad time to be shooting somebody as they're like growing into adulthood. The production value shifted significantly unevenly. Like sometimes things look really well polished and really well done. Other times it felt like it was shot on a weekend on a Saturday with a group of friends. It was just a very uneven movie front to back. Some of the showcase pieces, some of the kills were totally fine. Some of them just went on just a tad too long and started to show the seams a little too much. Like you start to see like a head beaten with a hammer 60 times, and after like fucking 30 of them, you're like, that's clearly a fake head. You know, like there comes a point where it's like everything starts to fall apart a little bit. And ultimately the big fucking kill in the middle, I'm just like, dude, the first one with the girl upside down was more of a fucking shock factor than that was to me. It felt absurd and silly at some point. It became black comedy to me, and I'm sure that's what they were hoping for. I'm sure that was the intent, because it kept going further and further. How far can you go? But it just like after a while, it just became obnoxious to me and didn't really have any effect. And ultimately, like the characters, there came a point where I was like, yeah, I do care about this girl, but then they became kind of silly and cheesy, and like I didn't care about her at the end when you should, because and I guess some people can make that leap with her, but I couldn't. Yeah. So in a lot of ways, it's like all that, I really wanted to see that film succeed simply for the fact that it's a huge moment for all of us. And in a lot of ways it still is. And I still see a lot of people going ape shit for it. And I'm happy for those people. But for me, the movie just didn't work. The first one didn't work. When there's a third, I just don't know if I'll be able to give it the same shot, because I feel like at this point you've given me two things that just didn't work for me.
Right. Well, I am going to go ahead and maybe piss off some people with my disappointment of the year. And Doug, you almost ruined it for me. That's Hellraiser. I had high hopes for this. I really did. I'm a fan, I would say, of David Bruckner. The work that he's done has been stellar. The Night House, and as well as The Ritual were both excellent films. I loved his contributions to VHS also, and I thought, hey, what can this guy do wrong? Just give him the Hellraiser franchise. He will not fuck it up. Now, I'm not saying he fucked it up, but the plot for me got a little flimsy, especially they were so reliant on the backstabbing boyfriend to deliver at the end. I felt like that was kind of a weak and told too many times story, if you will, a tired trope. And I thought the Cenobites and even the Hell Priestess were too pretty, too pleasant looking. A lot of that had to do with the lighting, the costuming designs as well. Yeah. But I know, whenever we saw the Fangoria leaks originally of the Cenobite that was just like a skin face, it creeped us out because it was real dark. But in the movie, it was very easy to see. And that's a part of a mark of a good horror movie is you don't reveal too much too quickly. I feel like this did, and many times as well. And then the kill scenes are always a big thing in the Hellraiser films. I mean, let's face it. The first Hellraiser film is a great movie. It's a cult classic, but it's not, a Stanley Kubrick piece. And certainly any movie after that is essentially just bad. You're just watching it for how are they going to kill these people? Show me unique ways you're going to kill these people, essentially. You watch it for the kills. And I love Pinhead. I love Clive Barker. I love the Hellraiser comics. To me, it just feels like a franchise that's never gotten its due diligence. And whether that's misguided choices, I know it kind of got prostituted out too in the VHS era, of the '90s as well. A lot of bad Hellraiser films got made, and I'm not saying this is bad. It's fine, but whenever I was expecting, let's say, a 9 out of 10, and it delivers a 6.5 for me, it's a disappointment.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was too pretty and too produced. I think that it's just too shiny. But
you're not supposed to think that Skin Face can get it.
Right. Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I felt like I wanted to be fucked, Danny. I don't know about you.
Yeah. Yeah.
By Skin Face. Yeah.
Yeah. Skin Face.
Too pretty. I want to be skin on my face.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely enjoyed it. I had fun watching it, but ultimately, I would have to agree with you, Barrett. I was disappointed with the way that it came out. My hopes were much higher, I guess. Which I suppose that's on me.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. It's it just did not deliver for me, and I know it's probably a me problem. I know that I've seen kind of mixed reviews about it as well. The reviews that I see, I'm in a Hellraiser group, for example, on Facebook. Some of the reviews are tic-tac that people give on it. A lot of people went in watching this too, not realizing it was a reimagining entirely of the universe in some respects. David Bruckner was told to make this his own, and that's exactly what he did. But I think a lot of people are going in also watching this with the impression that this is actually a direct sequel of the first one or some type of sequel. That's not the case here. It's a whole, new reboot. And I'm really just excited to see what I think, is it David Gordon Green's doing the TV series for, I believe, HBO, Hellraiser. Yeah.
And it's already in development. After Halloween ends?
I don't know that I am. But I know everything else that they do is great.
And
so
this is the only thing we're going to do.
Maybe.
I had a blast, but I had a situation that I explained on a previous podcast with Halloween Ends, because of how ridiculous it was. And
I had a blast with how fucking dumb it is. Like,
Yeah.
like 10 minutes in, I just looked at my girlfriend, and started laughing. I'm like, all right, we're in this movie, and just
Yeah.
checked out of like any expectation of of a good movie instead of turned into like
it was bad, but it was it was a watchable bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Like the
it
prior
makes me,
one to me was not.
it makes me laugh that people would be like, it's the worst movie I've ever seen. And I'm like, have you
Oh
seen
God,
Halloween
no.
Resurrection?
Yeah.
Resurrection still punches above that on terrible
H2O,
quality.
Jesus
And
Christ.
it's the same with Hellraiser in that sense. The Hellraiser reboots, like, I had high expectations for this exact same reason as you, Barrett. Like, a great team working on it with a budget, with a little more scope, a little more possibility. Like, you know, they could go a little bit deeper on it. And 2 films in with like great myth and world building, you know, so like, what a great opportunity for them to do this, and it's been in development for fucking ever. And so I just, I don't know. Like for me, it was like I can't say like I was disappointed. The way you are when your kids like do something dumb, and you're like, you know, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Right, for sure.
I love that we're taking it there.
Yeah.
So tell me more about therapy with your kids.
It was definitely like I would describe it as like a warm bath, you know.
Yeah, well, after seeing The Night House too, I got to mention this part, the dream sequence when they're out on the lake sitting in the I think it's like a canoe or something. Rebecca Hall is, and she's sitting across from her deceased husband, and that voice that he has, it's like this weird brooding voice. It's not like his natural voice. You know, it's just like some effects that they put on. It's almost like the monster effect in GarageBand, if anybody's familiar with that, or Logic. It's got this weird underneath like baritone to it, and it like makes your skin crawl. And whenever I saw that movie, and I was like, you know, I'm always like scouting, thinking like, oh man, this would be great. This would be great for, you know, this franchise or that. Like I could, whenever it was announced that he was taking on Hellraiser, David Bruckner, I immediately went back to that scene. I was like, that's like the perfect tone right there. Like the way he made me feel in that moment. Went back to the ritual.
I'm hoping that there is a sequel from that team, and I would love to see what they could do with this feedback and more opportunity to dig a little bit deeper.
Yeah,
I think, and you know, I don't think that it's a wash. I think maybe that it's just like there's too much time spent on setting things up and not really being able to, you know, I felt like they held too much close to the chest.
Yeah, it scratched the surface.
Yeah, they didn't quite swing as hard as I thought that they were going to.
I agree.
And so, you know, I'm hoping that we get an opportunity to get a sequel from them. I would love to see that. The TV series, I'm not 100% on. Like, I feel like Gordon Green has always had a super big hit or miss ratio for me.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes it's like just fucking kills it, and you're like, Jesus. Like, you get excited to have 2 or 3 projects in a row that just slay. And then he'll put out something that you're like, what the hell is this? Like, like what is this? So, yeah, I'm with you 100%.
So now we're on to our second on our list, ladies and gents. And because we've already talked about this movie ad nauseum, I'll just go ahead and throw out my second. And that's The Banshees of Inisherin. Again, liked it for all the reasons that we've already talked about. So I'm just going to kind of get into some more of the analytics of the movie. It's an hour and 54 minutes long, released in October of this year. Box office was 22 million. Budget I could not find specifically, but it reunites, of course, Gleason and Farrell and McDonough from In Bruges. We mentioned that earlier. The chemistry's crazy. Great dark comedy moments. Can't talk good enough about it. We talked about kind of the character development of Dominic, which was Barry Cogan's character specifically. You know, just wonderful performances all around, and I highly recommend it to anybody. You know, it's just a smartly done film. So, Doug, what do you got at number 2 on your list?
So I really want to touch real fast on Banshees. I was kind of doing. There's this guy Patrick Bromley that I've followed, and every time they list like this, it's always like Bromley rules. They're generally like if people share the same title, they hold on to it until it gets to like the last person who has it ranked the highest, and then everyone talks about it. Kind of frees up time instead of talking about the same title over and over. So I did that for the sake of time for us today. With Banshees, we've talked a lot about it. Like, I think it's just a killer. It's a killer two-hander. Great performances from 2 actors with a lot of subtext and a lot of emotional pull. It was interesting to like really analyze the infantile emotional dynamic of two men. Like that, no matter how old we are, a lot of times we handle things like we would if we were 6. Like he's just like,
for sure.
I just don't like you. It's like a 6-year-old attitude. And there's such a density and unwillingness to move or explain things, and a lack of emotional availability. There's just so much about it that handles like masculinity. It handles masculinity, funny enough, despite what I just said, in a way that's very like tuned in and very sweet in some ways.
Sure.
Like it handles like the things that us as men do in a way that's like it's a little softer than a film would normally be. But then, as spoken about earlier, that like once it starts to head a certain direction and it starts to head to like the gravity of the film where it's pulling and like the consequences of everything, it's a very sobering movie in a lot of ways too.
Definitely.
It makes you laugh, it makes you cry. I know that sounds cliche, but it does both of those things effectively. I think
it doesn't. Yeah.
Like I said, just like at this point, like Madonna's made. I love Seven Psychopaths. I don't think it has the same emotional plea that his other 3 films have. But I just, I think that,
I love it as its own, though. But
it's a farcical comedy to me. Like it's really outrageous,
but on purpose.
Yeah, but it doesn't. But it just doesn't have like quite the like strength on an emotional like through line that these other films have. But yeah, that's really all I have to tie up Banshees. So with my number 2 is Ruben Östlund's Triangle of Sadness. I didn't expect this movie to be one. I'll go out there and say it may not be the best movie of the year. There's things that I didn't quite love about it, but I will definitely say that it's absolutely the best directed movie I've seen this year, and that even trumps The Fabelmans, which I think was fucking just honestly like more people need to see that movie and talk about it. I thought it was, it's basically a Spielberg biopic. It was, it's a delightful movie. I got to see it in theaters. It was terrific. It actually like I welled up a couple 2-3 times through it. I was surprised, but Triangle of Sadness did the same thing for me. Like it moved me emotionally in ways I didn't expect. Earlier, as I was saying, like unexpected emotional responses were really my calling card this year. And with Triangle of Sadness, there's a scene where like the whole yacht, it's in the trailer, so it's not much of a spoiler. The whole fucking yacht they're on's like out of control, like wavering back and forth. Everybody gets food poisoning. The entire crew of all these like super rich assholes and elite people start getting wicked, horrible diarrhea and vomiting. So the whole boat's going backwards as people are puking all over the place. The toilets are backing up and running all over the place. It's just fucking disgusting. And there's a character you see, who's on the toilet fucking vomiting and having diarrhea simultaneously as like, as the ship's doing this.
Oh, man.
The film moves to a different location. You go quite a while without seeing a lot of the characters after this event. And when you finally do see that character, I mean, I'm not going to spoil who it is or where it fits into things, but she's dead. And it's like really heartbreaking because to me, it was this moment where it's like, it comes back to like recognizing that how swift things come for us like that. Like in like a moment you're laughing at her and she's humiliated. You as the audience witnessing her situation, you're she's being humiliated and being laughed at, and you're enjoying her suffering. And then the next scene, you're watching how much her loss meant to somebody else. And it's like, it's a very devastating juxtaposition of putting 2 scenes right back to back. And I thought that was just like such a brilliant and like unconventional thing to do. Like I was really, really just blown away with the film's overall quality and like how it affected everything. Wasn't sure what kind of movie it was going to be when I started it, but by the end I was like, Jesus, like a lot to be said with this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody have anything else they would like to add to Triangle of Sadness discussion before we move on to Danny's second pick?
I want to see the Triangle of Sadness. Doug messaged me about it a little bit, and we were chatting about that a bit. That sounds like my kind of jam. I mean, I looked it up and just looked at the synopsis and stuff. So I'm looking forward to checking that out. We on number 2?
Yes, sir. Number 2 on your list.
Number 2. What do we got here? Tell you what I got. I got fucking The Menu. Just watched last night, actually, directed by Mark Mylod.
I can't remember the guy's name.
Mark Mylod? I'm going to go with that. Yeah, I mean, just performances in it all around. I don't really know what I was expecting going into it, but I can say with 100% confidence, not that. I was not expecting that. And fuck, man, I love it when you can portray properly. Have you ever been in the presence of somebody that can just walk in a room of 50 people and everybody shuts up and looks at them? They can
For sure.
their presence alone commands a room.
Right.
And it's, if you see it in movies where they don't pull it off, it's so fucking stilted and weird. Like it's one of the most bizarre things to behold. Like because nobody looks actually interested in the room, I guess. But Ralph Fiennes is able to do this in such a way that it's unnerving. And the longer the movie goes, you're like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck would it be like to be exposed to this dude for months?
Yeah.
For months and months and years. And you start to kind of understand how all this shit unfolds. And then just the extra layers that are on top of the other characters and how they develop inside of the story, I thought was really fun. Some of them were a little hokey, but I get why they're there. They're there to fill a little void to help make it more whole. But I still enjoyed them, man. I thought, like, even John Leguizamo is in this movie if you haven't seen it, and he's just playing a delightful character. And you could argue a point that if you were to take him out of the movie entirely, it would be the same film, and you'd be 100% right. But he's just, everybody in it adds a little something that fills out this crowd of people, and the way that they execute. How should I put this? The way that they execute the portrayal of the things that their characters are going through at this dinner is, boy, it is something to behold, because it's so vastly different for everybody in the room. And it was really, really good. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought Ralph Fiennes, again, maybe performance of the year for me. I did watch this last night though, so this went from being a movie that I just wanted to watch to creeping into number 2.
Yeah.
So yeah, I highly recommend that if you haven't got the chance to see it.
Yeah, I'll contest your point about Leguizamo in that movie though. Only to say that, like, if you pulled him out, like, his performance isn't, I wouldn't say it's like a comedic, like, he's not chewing the scenery, he's not being like, he's not there for jokes. But if you pulled him out of that movie, it would take itself way too seriously. Like, he's a huge part. He anchors a lot of the humor of that movie, and he adds levity in this way that, like, everyone else has got all these conflicts and all these, like, serious social issues or things to discuss or pretentious arguments. But Leguizamo's the one that's like, he kind of like is lampooning himself a little bit. Not like himself, but he's lampooning like the type of character he's playing. It's kind of like almost a satire in a movie that is a satire, but he's, you cut away to him, and when you go away to what he's doing, it helps break up everybody that's like in these like really heated conversations and keeps it from being tonally too similar.
Yeah,
so it's like he had some of the best highlights of the movie. Is so fucking good in it. Like, but I'm with you. I think Fiennes just fucking dominates the whole movie as a tour de force for him. Like it's so rare that you see somebody, like you said, like his ability to captivate you as an audience and the actors on screen in a way that feels dynamic and singular. He's so incredible in it. It's like it's one of my favorite movies this year, and it was on the list multiple times since I've seen it, and I just kept like. There's some slight things that I kind of took issue with. Like, I thought, like, if I had to actually like stand up and debate this movie, like, could I actually argue that it's the best of the best? And to me, like, Triangle of Sadness covers a lot of similar thematic things.
Yeah.
However, the menu also, like you said, has just got so many curveballs you just do not see coming.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what I found so charming about it, man. I just I got a lot more than I bargained for. I was excited to watch it. I wasn't really positive what was going to transpire, and it really took me on a ride, and I had a lot of fun on that ride, and I won't give any spoilers about it. So,
very good. At number 2, we have the menu for Danny. Brandon, what do you got at number 2, sir?
All right, so this is going to tell you guys a lot about me. You guys already know me decently well. This should speak volumes because it's not that I disagree with either one of your interpretations, but my tied for my second is the Menu and Triangle of Sadness, only because they thematically touch on the same subject matter. First, I'll start with just what I would counter with to Doug and then Danny. And then I'll be done with my turn. Triangle of Sadness. So that moment that you're speaking of where the woman is pissing, shitting, and throwing up, and she's sliding across the bathroom floor. The reason why I could not hold back from laughing just now whenever you're describing it is because I'm remembering it, and I was crying laughing. Mostly because of the fact that this woman was another woman that had treated the staff so poorly that she was berating them. And I could only imagine this woman being just a terrible fucking hag bitch of a woman. I felt nothing whenever I found out that she died. And the reason why is because even, and this is, I mean, I guess it's kind of a spoiler. Even then, in that moment of, this dire moment of wanting to be there with her, in that moment, the man takes something of hers that is of value.
Yeah,
I think for me that's a beautiful thing about black comedy on both sides, both movies. This is black comedy, and it gets to a serious point where it's no longer comedy anymore.
Yeah,
but I think it was building up to that from the very.
The film changes pretty dramatically at that point. Yeah, right. To your point though, it's it isn't her death that affected me. I liked the husband character of hers, and you could see how it how much it affected him, and she was a terrible person,
even though he has a mistress.
Yeah, for sure, sure. But to see the loss in his eyes and in his performance was really it hit me. But then, like I said, just when you start to get too emotional, there's that little bit where he fucking yanks your shit that reminds you what movie you're in. It doesn't let you commit wholeheartedly, and it doesn't fucking
and Danny, I don't think it will take anything away from it either. So I'm sorry if I did anything from that, but that's the thing I love about.
I haven't seen the other one. I
think that's the thing that I love about both films. Is this very much is a eat the rich year, and these two movies, for me, the idiocies of individuals where they've just become bored and now they start to make everything they're an expert at everything and they know everything. And going on to Danny's pick for the Menu, Nicholas Hoult being the just fuck you motherfucker, you piece of fucking shit, treating this woman like a fucking piece of property, essentially just going, look at what I've done for you. I wanted everybody in that room besides her to die a horrible death. Even from John Leguizamo. I mean, there's so much self-importance in society as it is anyways, from where we go with fucking TikToks or how highly we think of ourselves to where nobody gives an actual shit but you. And then for this man to be put through all this bullshit constantly and be treated like essentially a slave to these people. And the comedic turn it takes as far as I thought it was hilarious that this is a planned out dinner, and I won't go to the degree that it is a planned out dinner, but everything's a course. So it's it's just so maniacal and so, and I sat and watched this movie in the theater myself, and I was laughing at some of just the insanities that were happening. So those are my two.
Very good.
S'mores specifically was one of my favorite parts of the movie, and it was goddamn hilarious. I fucking loved it.
Yeah, I just got to watch the menu like 2 nights ago or whatever it went up on HBO Max.
Oh, it's on HBO now?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
And I don't know what I was expecting. I didn't like it as much as you guys did. But it definitely has its dark comedy moments that are well worthwhile. And definitely could agree with the sentiment against Nicholas Hoult and his character too. He's kind of like just like everything we kind of despise at times. So like he's too busy taking pictures of his food. He's too busy talking about his fandom of the chef in and of itself, and you're using this ingredient or that ingredient. He's kind of a yuppie in some respects.
Yeah.
So like he's easily hateable. Like we can all like pretty much identify him with somebody that's we've crossed in our lives. So yeah, I would argue he's the villain of the film, really, in many respects.
In a lot of ways, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I thought it was kind of interesting. What's her name? Anya Taylor-Joy. Her character, she's a call girl, right? I mean, that's the impression that you're supposed to get.
Yeah.
Because they allude to her having done something with the senator that's there, having dinner as well.
That movie did such a great job of just constantly like doling out information in a way that just kept,
but not spoon feeding it per se.
And I think Holt was one of the best written characters this year because you go from liking him and being excited for him, to the conclusion of the film and how things go for him. That's like, man, such an incredible arc for a character because you just like. It's like an anti-arc. You're not rooting for them to win by the end. You're like rooting for their demise.
I never hate Nicholas Hoult either. Nicholas Hoult is
pretty likable guy usually.
As of recent years, he's fucking amazing. Like The Favorite, we have the Russian
Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah, fuck. I mean, like he's an excellent character in anything he does. I think.
Yeah, I agree. And he's going to be in Renfield too, which looks to be a fun little trip.
Yeah, I saw a trailer for that today.
I know, it looks wild.
It looks like a fun time, which I am always on board for.
100%, my dude. All right, guys, before we get to our number ones, let's talk about something that we're looking forward to in 2023. Is there a movie specifically that you want to go to bat for right now and say, this is the movie I'm looking forward to in 2023? I'm going to start with you, Brandon.
Oh, Jesus. Why'd you put me on the spot twice in a row?
Why not?
Fuck off.
Get your big boy pants on.
Somebody else go first, because I gotta.
I am totally not ready. I was not prepared for this.
I'll go ahead and do it. I'll come up to the batter's box, and I'm gonna knock it out of the park with Beau is Afraid, formerly Disappointment Boulevard. Ari Aster's third installment featured film that's coming out with Joaquin Phoenix, Parker Posey, Amy Ryan, Richard Kind.
I'm so sorry, Barrett. There was an explosion here. I'm going to go look outside. I'll be right back.
Okay, go right ahead.
Sounds like
that sounds more important. Richard Kind and Nathan Lane are all going to be in this movie. And it's a decade-spanning portrait of one of the most successful entrepreneurs of all time is the byline for the movie. I'm sure it's going to have very little to do with that. Knowing Ari Aster, he likes to play it close to the vest with his films. And he's a part of what I would consider the top echelon of present-day directors, young directors for me. Kind of that first heat of directors, I would probably put him, Peele Eggers, with kind of Jennifer Kent, Panos, and Brandon Cronenberg on the heels of them. And just any movie that he puts out, Ari Aster, I absolutely love, is typically my favorite, or if not of my favorites of that year. So anything that Ari Aster is going to do is always going to be at the top of my most anticipated list. And Joaquin Phoenix, I would say he's the greatest modern day actor. I mean, argument can be made easily. And it's supposed to come out April 21st of 2023. And funny enough, we covered this on the very first episode of ATI Podcast, Most Anticipated Films of 2022, because originally this was supposed to come out in 2022, but has met multiple delays. And this is also going to be an A24 joint as well. So Beau is Afraid is my most anticipated movie of 2023. Ari Aster starring Joaquin Phoenix. Beau is Afraid.
I'm ready. If you're
all right. Go right ahead, Brandon.
I would say, first off, it would be Across the Spider-Verse. I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Fuck.
That's going to be one that just completely dominates. The first one's wonderful. I've watched it a million times. Showed my kid. He loves it. I love it still. I don't think there's ever a time I wouldn't watch it. It's just breath of fresh air whenever it comes to Spider-Man. Secondly, Dune Part 2. I know that there's hate out there for Dune Part 1. Fuck off. I don't give a shit. It's a slow burn. Go fuck yourself. It's fantastic, and everything that man does, I'll fucking always love. The newer Blade, can't remember, Blade Runner was fantastic. I don't think that there's ever a thing that Sam Mendes is that. No, that's not.
No, that's Denis Villeneuve or Howard
Villeneuve. Yeah,
Villeneuve.
Nothing that he will do that I will ever dislike. I think that he's just that. He's perfect at atmosphere. He's perfect at just that.
Arrival, Sicario. I mean, man, they're fucking prisoners.
He puts you in a mood every single time he comes out with a movie. So I can watch the original or that Dune over and over again while I'm painting, and it would be just the soundtrack alone is gorgeous. But
definitely,
that would be my other.
All right, Doug, you got a submission now, sir?
I sure do. Like, I was like, fuck, man, I have to stop and think about, like, I don't know. I'm mostly over basically all things comic book movie. Was never really super deep into it, but it feels like, just where there's whatever. But, Guardians 3 has got me on the lifeline. When that one's done, I could probably walk away from them feeling like I've completed something. I am excited for that one. I'm excited for Barbie, surprisingly. It looks like it's going to be a fucking blast.
Bet.
Killers of the Flower Moon comes out.
Definitely.
So I'm really excited for that because it's like, I don't know, man. The more that these comic book movies and animated movies dominate the box office, the more I'm hungry for just like an adult movie, like a movie with like perspective and some shit to say,
And they've not gotten better either.
No,
like they've gotten worse.
They've peaked, and I feel like at this point they're not pushing the envelope any further. So it's what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
But that book, Killers of the Flower Moon's so fucking good, and it's just like a story that I think's gonna show up on screen in a way that's like gonna. I mean, it's the type of movie like kind of I think the world needs right now. Like it's definitely got a commentary that's relevant about a subject matter from 100 years ago. I think Scorsese's the kind of guy that's not going to give you the surface value version of that story. He's going to give you
100%
the much deeper interpretation of it.
I agree. Yeah, definitely looking forward to that one too. Danny, what you got for anticipated release 2023?
Man, I also had Into the Spider-Verse, but I want to roll off what Doug was saying there. As a huge comic book nerd for as long as I could read. Continuity. I can't read. So as long as I've been able to enjoy those pictures in those picture books with the weird squiggly
the picture books.
I have always I never idolized comic book characters, but I was always like, man, it's fucking sweet. That's fucking cool. That dude can fly. This dude can lift metal. This dude can do other shit. This dude's made of metal. What a funny pairing. Into the Spider-Verse was a movie for me that all of a sudden made all the other comic book movies I'd ever seen kind of irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because it's such a neat adaptation of that hand-drawn art form to screen that still is an animated film that is nothing like any other animated film I've ever seen. It's got such a unique feel, and the writing for the first one was so fantastic. The new one, I want to throw a hat tip here to the directors.
Isn't it Phil Lord?
Joaquim Dos Santos, Kemp Powers, and Justin K. Thompson for Across the Spider-Verse. But man, I'm so excited to see how they play it because the first one, I would argue, is the best Spider-Man thing that has ever been committed to screen. It's
in the conversation for sure.
Yeah, it's so unique to all the other Spider-Man things that we've already seen. How many Spider-Man origin things are fucking out there? I'm even talking about like Japanese Spider-Man, that like
Right.
limited run series. They got like 9 episodes or some shit.
Right.
It's like it's just all garbage throwaway, but they fucking jam it in there anyway. And to reinvent, not like Miles Morales is a new character. He's not. But to
Right.
reinvent the roots of a new Peter Parker, one of the most affable guys in the history of comic books. What an undertaking. And to do it so smoothly with this great narrative, and for it to not really be an origin story, it's still an origin story and does like 9 other origin stories in it. But it's so brisk, it doesn't feel like that. And I really think that's incredible. Like, that's incredible. That's incredible top tier stuff. And I'm excited to see what they will do to take it a step further. I will say I'm a little apprehensive because I feel like it might just be too bonkers to make enough sense. But I'm hoping that they have enough restraint to focus on the narrative rather than like, oh, look at this Easter egg, because that shit's getting old.
Yeah, I know that somebody did a character count of the various versions of Spider-Man that was just in the trailer alone that they put out.
Teaser trailer,
which was obscene. I want to say it was like over 300 or something like that.
It's a ton.
That's I'm like, oh man. And I'm sure some of that's just a flash in the pan, like background Easter egg type thing.
Yeah, and I like Easter eggs. I like that shit.
Yeah, me too.
Because I'm a fucking nerd. But when that's what you're bringing to the table, you know what I mean? Like, we're having a feast. If you just bring 18 baskets full of Easter eggs and nothing else, then we're just fucking eating eggs, then, aren't we?
Yes.
And
100%.
it gets a little old.
That's very real to me right now, and I don't want to eat 18 eggs in a row.
No, 18 baskets of eggs. And who even knows? Yeah, laundry baskets.
Joey Chestnut, I found out today. Weird that we're talking about eggs. Joey Chestnut ate like 150 something
hard-boiled eggs
in like 15 to 20 minutes or something like that.
That man's gonna have to die a tragic and volatile death.
Hot dog guy?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're not
it's
talking
crazy.
about. Okay, hot dog guy. I was like, I went to school with a guy named Joey. I was like, surely we're not talking about this. I mean, maybe I could see.
We're talking about the world famous competitive eater.
Yeah, that like choked that kid out on air.
Yeah,
but I mean, like, I guess if go watch it. It's fucking wild. He's like mid eating hot dogs, and some kid bum rushes him. And he like grabs the kid, puts him in a chokehold, continues eating hot dogs while he's like choking this kid. It's
141 eggs in 8 minutes.
Wow,
Jesus, dude.
You know what though? I can see that more than the hot dog because like you could fit multiple eggs. So if he's just,
I want to see you do it right now.
He's just fucking baby snaking it, just sliding down.
Could you imagine the elasticity of his stomach? I mean, it's got to be unreal.
I don't even think I could eat 150 like raw eggs.
I don't know.
How would you fit it?
Your body would just like reject it. I would think.
I think so. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Pretty gross.
Yeah, there's something up with that guy.
All right, so Egg Talk 101.
All right, gentlemen, we are finally here. The pivotal moment of our number ones. And everybody's going to judge our entire list based on what our number ones is. So no pressure. No pressure out there.
I think a lot of us are going to have the same one.
I don't give a fuck.
Give no fucks. So,
I don't give no fucks.
Brandon, what do you have at number one?
We can count down.
I finally get the... Okay.
We can count down from 3 and just all say it at the same time.
Everything. You ready? Everything. Everywhere. All at once. What a...
I like how you guys did that all at once.
Yeah, it was perfect. We scripted it.
Yeah.
I kind of wish
it's not my number one, so...
Okay, that's good.
So, you guys chat about that movie, and I'll talk about a different one when it's my turn.
That's the best movie I've ever seen, ever, in my life, I think.
Wow.
It is just an absolute... It is an absolute fucking... victory of pen meeting paper and just cinema in general. I think it is one of the smartest, most heartfelt, delightful, batshit crazy fucking stories I've ever heard, and I love it.
A friend of mine used to have this prompt, and it's always fascinating. It's a great small talk piece, and it helps, like, you know, measure the someone else's personality a little bit. He used to do this
Right.
prompt. He would say, if aliens came to Earth, what one movie would you show them that would define
Ooh.
movies? Like, what would be the movie you would show them to give them an idea of what movies are? For the fucking 15 years that I've heard that question, it's been Forrest Gump. I feel like that movie kind of shows you multiple different types of movies. It has
I agree.
all the things you want in a movie. Not likely to offend them per se. There's no alien battles in it or anything, so you don't have to explain that away. But up until Everything Everywhere at Once, I think is the movie that I would show them to show them how important cinema is, because it's a movie that does all of these amazing things in such a way that it just doesn't feel like you should be able to thread a needle that fucking well. Like, it just doesn't.
Yeah, it's unrelenting. It's like a pow straight to the face of all these different genres and all these. And honestly, for me, Danny, this was the comedy of the year. I think it was a comedy of the year. It's got drama in it, heartfelt, beautiful moments. It's got all of this, like, just the donut alone and the hot dog fingers. I mean, there's
Bagel.
So the bagel, sorry.
Dude, you're not the only person that's made that mistake. My coworker did the same thing to me. He was like, I'm not going to ruin the movie for you, but donuts are very important. I got to watch the movie. There's nothing about fucking donuts in the movie. And I go back to him and I'm like, do you know the difference between a fucking donut and a bagel, jackass?
So wait a second, are you just...
You should remember the bagel because it's an everything bagel. It's got everything on it.
You're just shitting on me right now?
I am.
Your stupid ass fucking coworker? I don't give a shit about that guy. This fucking film, man. It's gorgeous. And this is what a multiverse movie actually is. Like, if we're going to go into this multiverse thing, this is the multiverse. This is a fucking badass combination of things that is so smartly put together. And it's brilliant. I love it.
I love the scene where they're like working for the butt plug. I mean, if that tells you anything. The butt plug trophies, the guy has to get on it so he can tap into this other version of himself so he can combat. Like, oh my God.
I saw that on like a Wednesday in Cape Girardeau when I was down there for a shoot, and the audience was like maybe 8 people, and they're all like adult age.
Yeah.
And that scene come up, and these 8 fucking people were like kicking off like a rock show, man. They're like cheering, like trying to rooting for the butt plug.
Yeah.
I was just I'm like looking around, like what are the odds that this small collection of people on a Wednesday at 5 p.m. would have like this, like they'd all getting this reaction out of that group of people.
What's insane is they were all sitting on butt plugs.
They're complimentary when you bought a ticket.
I tell you, part of what I like so much about it is to like Doug, what you were saying about like, oh, if aliens came down, what would you show them? About being human. In a normal, I guess A to B narrative, you can only really showcase the emotions of the characters that you have. Yeah. But in something like this, you can take that person and pick them apart into different people, because every day we're a little different. You know what I mean? Yep. You wake up with a different, like a preconceived notion in your head for the day. Well, that's technically a different you than it was the day before. You will answer questions differently. You know what I mean? Like not given any prompted answers. So it's a great way to pull apart that the fact that people aren't always the same person, and B, to tease all those different types of emotions and information out of those different aspects of the same character. So, for instance, when she's in the universe where she never met her, or she knew her husband, but they didn't get married. They split up. She became wildly successful, and he became wildly successful. When they're having this conversation, it is a departure from a part of how she already feels anyway. And these are things that she already knows about herself. She already knows about her husband. This is just a way that she can come to grips with it in the other personality that's the real world character that we meet through the whole film.
Right.
And it is a very unusual, artistic, and smart way to convey that idea, I think.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean it's
Very
definitely it's like
humanistic.
it deals with human feelings that are so hard to put a button on, of resentment for life choices you spend the rest of your
100%.
life regretting, nostalgia for better times that you once had, and
Yep.
that really really fucking dangerous path we all go down, which is what if, like
Right.
what if I'd done this, what if I'd done that, but the other thing that it does so well is like it's a joyous celebration of cinema too, because it takes, I often defend cliches and tropes, because sometimes, when I'm talking to people, they'll be like, oh, tropes are bad, cliches are bad. I'm like, no, cliches and tropes are good if you know how to use them.
Yes.
If you're using them as a shortcut to introduce an idea.
Correct.
And this movie is a great example of it, because it's like, it's a celebration of cinema, because every time they do something tropey, the backdrop is a type of movie you've seen.
Raccacoonie.
So it's taking you to all these different like worlds and using cinema to help keep the worlds consistent and help you as the audience connect with like the type of story they're trying to say. And there's a lot of tropes and a lot of cliches in it, but it's done in a way that's still recognizing and honoring the feelings these characters have throughout that journey. And it's also a movie that I feel like is a celebration of the internet and the absurdity of the internet. So it's a really complex thing that's like, it's so easy to have done this movie and have it be very pastiche, but somehow they just were able to write this rock solid emotional through line that pulled the whole movie together and anchored everything, and every consequence felt like it was leading, every action felt like it was leading to a consequence that would pay off. And it does. Like by the time, it's like there's at least 3 or 4 moments where you feel like, fuck, it's over. Like it's, oh my God, we're over. And then you're like, oh Jesus, like we're dealing with this now.
Right.
Raccoon Tui, we need a moment of silence.
Yeah, moment of silence for Raccoonie.
Yeah. That was a fucking brilliant.
Raccacoonie.
No, nothing can be said that hasn't. I mean, it's just phenomenal. We could pick that movie apart forever.
And nobody's half-ass in it. Nobody.
Correct.
Even the guy in the laundromat that he's dancing with, and he's like, "Oh, I really got the moves." That guy's not half-ass in it either. Everybody, Jamie Curtis having the time of her life.
Yep.
It's look at her. So much fun. Losing her mind.
Like, I love the universe where they had like the dildo or hot dog fingers or whatever it was. Fingers. Yeah. And it's fucking hilarious.
The fucking production of that movie is a miracle. Like the visual effects team was 5 people.
What the fuck?
That's crazy.
5 on the internet. 5 people.
That's crazy.
Everything was shot in one building. I wouldn't be shocked if the budget wasn't more than $1.5 million. For real. Like it was done. Like none of that information's really out there.
Right.
And then the other thing about it that's amazing is like COVID hit while they were shooting, and there were things that they had to invent or do differently because of COVID.
Right.
Like when you're watching the visual effects breakdowns, the entire scenes with Waymond and Michelle Yeoh's characters sitting in the van together, talking. That whole fucking bit is the two of them green screened into the seat together, done like extremely like homemade. Seamless. Like it's the kind of thing like like a student filmmaker would do, but they were able to do it and pull it off, and it looks amazing.
It's so fucking clean.
Yeah, it's so clean. Like there's not a scene like watching it on a big screen. There was never a moment where I'm like, oh, this is a visual effects shot. Fuck no, not a single moment.
Right.
When I found out it was a
single part that was bad.
I can't think of a moment that I was like, well, could have done without that. In fact, even the most absurd and crazy ones like the fucking Rock piece, like I listened to them on some podcast and they said their DP was convinced that it needed to be in the movie. He was obsessed with this fucking Rock idea and kept pushing it, like telling them that they needed to do it. Like then COVID hit and they had nothing to shoot.
So I thought it was pretty great.
Shot the Rock.
Yeah, they drove up to the middle of fucking nowhere, shot the Rock there.
I love when the mother Rock turns and it's got the googly eyes on it too. That reveal, like the slow turn. Like
what ended up happening was like I ended up, that to me was one of the most like emotionally like riveting scenes, and it was so weird because like, there was nothing to. There was no faces. There was no tears. It was just the connection was so like magnetic between a mother and her daughter. Just it didn't matter what form they were in, and it kind of reminded me of something like Pixar would have done. You know what I mean? Like taking these characters and putting them in a situation that's just like, you're so emotionally invested in them, and they're putting in a situation where there's like that barriers between what they can and can't do. And again, like I said at the very top of the podcast, like sometimes great writing is just about creating conflict and finding ways to make things unattainable for your characters. And
it definitely made me cry a couple times.
Yeah, this movie fucking rocked me. Like you said earlier, Danny, like had me laughing, and seconds later had me like tearing up, just being like, fuck, like this movie's speaking to feelings I didn't know I had.
Right. Yeah, and what you're saying about the scene with the rocks, man, I was sitting there watching it, and I paused it for a minute and was just like, had my hands on my head, and I was like, I cannot believe that I feel so emotional right now about two rocks and text on screen. Yeah. And the sound of wind, which I think they added in post originally. They were like, no sound. And I think that would have been even a little more ridiculous, but the wind, I guess, I don't know what it does for it, but I've watched it 3 times now, and I found it so appealing. I don't know that it would
have the same effect.
That little bit of something, it does something for me, but it's the writing is what makes it so fucking powerful. And it's like Doug said, because you're already so invested, you can almost just take the characters off the screen for a minute.
Yeah.
You don't need them. I mean, what do the rocks do?
Like,
turn and one rolls down a hill? There's nothing to it. But
the little bit of experience I have with sound design and shit like that, and being able to, choices you make on whether or not you leave sounds in or take them out, which are super important. Imagining that, I didn't know that when you said that, Danny, that they were gonna they considered not having any background sound or ambient sound. It would feel too alien. It would feel too isolated. It would feel too isolated. By adding that little bit of wind, it gives it that texture to make you like, oh, I'm still on Earth, but I'm just in a different time, probably, or somewhere foreign, but not, unrelatable. So it's the tiniest bizarre choices like that make such a significant impact.
Mm-hmm. Well, the real reason they wanted to go for it is because she's like, oh, we're going to a planet where life never developed. Well, if life never developed, there is no atmosphere, so there is no sound. So that's why they were going to lean into that. And I think it might have been, from my recollection, this absolutely could be wrong, but from my recollection, I think Michelle Yeoh was the one who insisted that they put the breeze, just the sound of the breeze in it. And I think honestly that particular scene is like one of the most impressive things I've seen in several years.
All right, you all 3 had Everything Everywhere at Once, right? As your number 1. Which we've already talked about this film, but I've got some different points to bring up, had Nope by Jordan Peele as my number 1 film.
Hey.
So I'll just go through the byline real quick, like I did with my other selections. After random objects falling from the sky result in the death of their father, ranch-owning siblings OJ and Emerald Haywood attempt to capture video evidence of an unidentified flying object with the help of a tech salesman, Angel Torres, and documentarian Antlers Holst. So Daniel Kaluuya, Keke Palmer, Stephen Young, Michael Wincott, to name several of the stars of the film. Jordan Peele joint, once again, one of my favorite directors doing it right now. Came out in July of 2022 this year. Had a $68 million budget and did north of $170 million. So at the box office. So very successful. 2 hours and 10 minutes. And there's a lot of cool things going on with Nope. First and foremost, Jordan Peele is a director who often leaves things up to interpretation, although he does things with an intent also. So in a lot of interviews, Jordan Peele said that this movie's theme is specifically about spectacle as it relates to Hollywood, fame, celebrity, etc. That's not really like what I gravitated and leaned into when watching the film personally. I was pretty hung up on that motif of a bad miracle that continued to happen throughout the movie. Not to say anybody would be wrong on going down either of those paths. Right. It's also important to keep in mind too, there was a lot of talk as trailers were coming out before the movie was out, and Jordan Peele was doing kind of a mystery box reveal type approach with the movie, is that Nope is an acronym, not of planet Earth. So there's a lot of people that were really focusing in on that as well. So that's where the thoughts of extraterrestrial and that sort of thing started to come in. Joey Rakovan, who's been on the show before, a mutual friend of many of ours, he and I got into a discussion about Nope, and my mind can't get away from this now for multiple reasons, which I'm about to get into. So the movie opens up with a very hateful Old Testament Torah era quote, and that's in Nahum. It's 3:6, and I wrote it down. I will cast abominable filth upon you and make you vile and make you a spectacle. So that is the opening biblical quote for the movie. And so then I got to thinking about, okay, well, not of planet Earth, that means it could be angelic. And if you get into some of the medieval interpretations of angels, they're not all nice. And you have to also consider the fact that Lucifer was an angel.
Yeah.
So you could also look at this creature, not necessarily, things that are extraterrestrial doesn't necessarily mean that it's an alien in the sense that we think of them, like the Greys, if you will. It's a popular characteristic of aliens. Like to me, an alien would be an angel as well because they're not of this earth. Yeah. So I could see this, and especially whenever, at first, big spoiler here, you just see a cloud moving. And then that kind of turns into a flying saucer, but more of an organic being that looks similar to like a stingray, for example. And that was kind of some of the hate on it as well. I think people, and this happens often with movies, they get defensive. They almost take offense to whenever things don't play out in a way that they think that they should, or what they thought a movie was going to be ultimately. I think a lot of that happened with this creature in and of itself. But where I get back into the angelic thing, so this creature transforms as the movie progresses along, and it's not trying to conceal its identity any longer, and so on and so forth. And there's like this weird tapestry to it, and it almost like comes out into this. There's like a centric box as well, and to me that looked very angelic on the screen as well. Coincidentally, the tech salesman, his name is Angel, also in the film. So with a lot of these ties to biblical related things, and one very obvious being the fact that they open it up with a scripture, I can't not think that isn't done without intent, by Jordan Peele as well. So yeah, I just think that there's a lot to chew on with the film. And is it his best film? I don't think it is. In fact, I would maybe even argue this might be his weakest film. But it's still good enough that it has me still thinking about it today, and my wife and I don't rewatch a lot of movies. I rewatch this movie, and and that says a lot for me as I would consider myself a cinephile in many respects. And, I've got limited time, but, once I got the 4K UHD special edition of this, my wife gifted it to me. I had to watch it again, look at some of the behind the scenes stuff as well. And it's beautifully shot as well. I mean, we can't overlook that. The cinematography in this is just absolutely stunning, amazing. I'm sure that it's going to be nominated for that. If not, it's a crime. This movie too is just incredible. And Michael Wincott's character, Antlers Holst, what a fucking character. Like, he's not in it very long, but he steals every scene that he's involved in. He's got that gravelly voice, of course. And
he's got
that's something from my childhood, from straight up Robin Hood with Kevin Costner.
Yes.
That to me, seeing him in the film, that's wow. That voice is so recognizable, and I could go into the movie completely blinded by his scenes and just know exactly.
I remember him popping up in Westworld for like a scene, and I lost my shit.
Yeah,
I'm always excited to see him like in anything, and I was so glad to see him like really get to chew on some scenery in this one.
Yeah, and David Keith was in it too as the father. Who's another? Keith David. I'm sorry, I did it backwards.
No, it's like honestly, I think that's probably the most common name swap thing.
Yeah,
it's Keith David, David Keith.
Right,
dude. I fucking love Keith David.
Yeah, he's awesome, and iconic voice there too.
Yeah, absolutely.
His
very
Twitter
iconic
handle was
voice
Silver
actor.
Throat.
Yeah, well, it's like my kid's very interested in voice acting. So anytime I'm watching a movie and somebody I know that voice acts stuff that she's seen, I'll be like, "Hey, come in here. Who is that?" And she'll listen. I'll be like, "Don't look at him though. Just listen."
Yeah.
She'll be like, "Oh my God, that's so and so."
Yeah.
And man, he's got a gravity to him. You just kind of want to hang out with him.
Go
when
watch.
he's on the screen.
Go have a look up like Frank Welker's like filmography.
Oh
like,
hell yeah!
Voice Optimus Prime. No, that's Peter Cullen. But he did Transformer shit too, if I recall. But then also like Gremlins, Predator, like a shitload of cartoons we watched as kids. Like that dude's got a crazy filmography. Barrett though, like what you said about the angel shit, man, I'm gonna be thinking about that a lot. You're absolutely dead on with like that is not happenstance, man. That is like by design that he wanted to put some of that in there.
The other big thing too, of course, I can't forget is the fact that Stephen Young's character too. He was a childhood actor we've talked about before. Was on the chimpanzee show where the chimp went nuts and murdered everybody on set. He survived it. He holds a little shrine in his office as well of the incident and actually charges people to come in and take a look at it. Like he's kind of exploiting it, but he clearly has PTSD and trauma that he suffered from the event. And he tries to play it off like it's no big thing, make light of it, talk about an SNL sketch that was done. The centerpiece of this collection is the shoe that never drops. And I was obsessed with that part of the film when I first watched it as well. It's like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, and then it never does. So I thought that was pretty comedic. And you also have to love that Akira homage, the sideways motorcycle slide.
Oh, slide, hell yeah!
Yeah, that was fucking dope.
I want to add, man, Keke Palmer is fucking lightning in a bottle.
Hell yes,
she's amazing. So much fun, man.
She's the best part of the movie, I think.
Yeah, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, she would have taken the second female lead or female.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably for me too, for real.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
Doug, you were going to say something?
Here's some hometown baseball. So, like, if you're not from the area and you're listening to this, I apologize. I'll make it brisk. So, right before Nope came out, before like anything with the chimpanzee had really become like established.
Yeah.
I was telling someone about that fucking chimpanzee attack that's based off. Right? Remember, famously, they gave the chimpanzee Ambien and it like ripped that lady's face off.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like nearly killed her, like broke her hands off. It was all over the fucking news, and it's like old now. It's old news.
Right.
So anyway, like, yeah, I was telling someone about that, and then, like less than a week later, I go to see Nope, and I didn't realize it was this massive plot point in the film. Like they kept it very under wraps until the film came out.
Right.
And so I went and I saw that at the Festus movie theater, right? Like right there, B&B, right there in Festus.
Yeah, Festus B&B.
That's the one I always go to.
So I'm kicking it there. I'm watching it in Festus. I get out of there and I decide I'm going to go do a little deep diving about this chimpanzee after I get out of the movie. And I'm scrolling and I'm doing the thing, and I'll be goddamned. Do you know where the real chimpanzee came from that did that?
No, I don't.
Not where the attack happened, but where he was born and raised and sold from.
Park Hills?
Festus.
I'll be damned.
No.
Oh my god, I fucking love these rednecks, man. Wow.
Crazy synchronicity, dude. Like, I was just
hilarious.
like, those moments when you're like, what? The Pentagon opened on 9/11, 1961?
Yeah.
Yeah, the moments where you're just like, you see things, you're like, these numbers add up.
Right.
Like, that was that for me, where I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
That's fucking wild.
That is crazy, man.
Like, Lincoln, you'll miss a little town that you're driving through, you watch a movie, and you leave, and the fucking goddamn monkeys from there.
That's fucking incredible, man.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, before we wrap it up, let's throw out one honorable mention that, or if you just want to give a quick punch list. For me, I'm just going to go ahead and get it started and get it out of the way. Decision to Leave by Park Chan-wook. Park Chan-wook is one of my favorite directors, period. Old Boy, probably top 5 movie ever for me. I love just everything that Park Chan-wook has done. The premise of this movie is from a mountain peak in South Korea, a man plummets to his death. Did he jump or was he pushed? When a detective arrives on the scene, he begins to suspect that the dead man's wife might be involved. But he digs deeper into the investigation and he finds himself trapped in a web of deception and desire. This came out in October of this year. Box office, it did almost $22 million. It had a $10 million budget. It's a South Korean film. 2 hours, 18 minutes. and it's got a tragic Shakespearean ending, well done, well executed. So I have an appreciation for that always. The big thing for this movie for me, the acting performances are solid. However, it's the shots, the cinematography, the editing. Like, it is a master class, and you're seeing a lot of those unique Park Chan-wook approaches on how to attack a scene with the camera specifically. So I'm not exactly sure who his DP is on this, if it's consistent with his other films. I didn't look that up. Irrelevant to that, I know it's his influence on trying to capture these things. So there's a shot in the film. It's a dead man's eye perspective looking up the mountain, and ants are traveling over the top of the lens. Very unique. Never seen it in a movie before. Very well done. There's almost like, I wouldn't call it a tracking shot per se, but there's a shot where he pivots. I guess he posted the camera on the rearview mirror of a car. So as the car door closes, you see what's in the perspective of that rearview mirror. I hadn't seen that done in too many movies before, or a side mirror, if you will. And that was really cool. Several I could just sit here and do a punch list of shots that I just love from this movie. And, it's not to say it's a story that you've seen or not seen before. I would say that the story is somewhat predictable. However, how they tell the story there's an appreciation for it. Like, I don't always get like pissed off whenever people try to ruin like, oh, this happened in this movie per se. I have more of an appreciation of how they tell that story and where it fits in the grand scheme of things. So this is a film, again, probably not on a lot of people's radars. I wouldn't call it a strongest film, but it definitely has its moments, and I would definitely recommend people to check out, especially if you like foreign films, if you like Korean films, and you probably maybe have even seen a Park Chan-wook film and not realized it. But he's a fantastic director, and he has a huge cult following in and of himself. One of my favorite directors. Decision to Leave.
That's another one that I really wanted to fucking catch before this episode, but it's definitely on my list for seeing.
Awesome.
I did get that one. I just would echo everything Barrett said. It is, although it's predictable, it is still something to behold. Like, even like your old lady get home from the grocery store or something and tell you a story about some weirdo in the grocery store. Like, oh my God, I saw this person. They were fucking,
right,
just being assholes, like wiping their ass with the ranch dressing or just something.
Right.
You've seen a psychopath like that in the grocery store. It's not a news story, but something about just an earnest retelling is still can be refreshing and feel like a renewing quality.
Right, for sure.
It starts to feel like the Hannibal TV show with Mads Mikkelsen a little bit, in that he's already figured out what's happened, but he's so intoxicated by this Black Widow.
Right.
It really, and the shots. I mean, I don't know if the shots weren't in this movie. I don't know if it would have hit me as hard, but he's such a brilliant storyteller, and I think a lot of it, like you said, Barrett, pulls from his the cinematographer pulls from his influence.
Yeah, I mean, he's a masterful filmmaker. He could probably fucking shoot cheese molding for 30 days, and I'd probably watch it. Yeah. So a little biased, anyways. But Brandon, what you got for an honorable mention?
My honorable mention, which I mentioned before, is the Worse Than Triangle Sadness. I think for me, it was definitely Soft and Quiet. Originally, whenever I went into this movie, I expected it to. There's nothing given to you whatsoever from the trailer. That there's a panicking in a woman's group, and that's it. But from the moment it kicks off, I'd say 5 minutes in, you're already like, there's something just fucking off about this movie. And you think that it's going to turn, I thought it was going to turn into a black comedy. But what I ended up getting into, which Liz was very disturbed by, is it's very real. And it's happening right near everywhere in America right now. And it's one of those movies you watch one movie and then maybe put on Paddington 2.
Lighten it up.
Watch that because this is the darkest film, in my opinion, of 2022. Hits hard at home. There's a moment with a pie and a reverse peace sign that I was very blown away by right off the bat, and it just hits hard. It hits home. I think everybody should watch it if you're of our type of people, but
not for the faint of heart, though.
It's not for the faint of heart. It's very uncomfortable. It's very, very, very uncomfortable. Like we're getting into. It is
added to my list. I have not even heard of that.
It is getting to the point to where it's almost uncomfortable in the 120 Days of Sodom realm.
Gotcha.
It's like it's funny games, but darker.
Yeah.
For me, I always try and look out for these films that are really going to push me past and get past all this stuff that I'm already desensitized by. But this knocked me on my ass, and I felt so uncomfortable even thinking about putting it on top 5.
Right on. Well, that sounds like a must-watch then, for sure. Danny, what you got for an honorable mention, sir?
Man, I've not got anything that blew up at the box office or that even got a theatrical release. It was actually something I just kind of randomly happened across, and I thought it was really fun, and I would like more people to check it out. It's actually a horror anthology called Tiny Cinema. It's directed by Tyler Cornack, and
Tiny Cinema.
I don't consider I don't get pumped about horror anthologies. I'll watch them, but the one little teaser I had seen for this had me interested, and I went into it, and I found it to be very charming, and also some unsettling topics, and some of them were just fun, like just hokey enough to be fun, but well done enough to be taken seriously. There's a delightful I don't know what the term is for it, like kind of like
Hey, Diddy.
how the Crypt Keeper is the host of whatever. Yeah.
Hey, hold on a second. I'm gonna have to refresh. My shit just crashed in the middle of you talking.
Okay.
So just give me a sec here.
All right.
Well, fuck that guy, right?
Yo, you guys gonna check out Tiny Cinema?
Yo, yeah.
I'm back. We're right back on it.
Oh shit.
Okay. I don't know.
Sorry.
I don't know where did I cut out?
Honestly, maybe like 30 seconds before I interrupted you.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah. Anyway, just a charming, well put together fucking anthology. Something that I expected to just kind of put on and be like, oh yeah, it was whatever, and I wound up actually really liking it. Just fun stories that can, scary shit can be fun.
Absolutely.
It can be light and gory and kind of unsettling the longer you think about it. And it was I don't know, it was really nicely done, and I was very pleasantly surprised. So I guess as just a blind spot recommendation that I really enjoyed from 2022.
I had seen that on a few recommended lists, but that's one I missed this year as well, and I do have an intent to check it out. And I love a good horror anthology. Some of my early relationships with horror and enjoying films were from anthology type things. Tales from the Crypt, for example, Creep Show. Those were all big parts of my childhood. And then later, Tales from the Hood. I enjoyed that quite a bit. So, and then of course, ABCs of Death and VHS, and enjoyed those as well. So, alrighty, Mr. Doug, what you got for a honorable mention? Close us out, sir.
Just gonna throw fresh up. Man, talk about a sleeper. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
Again, earlier Danny mentioned how Fox Searchlight. He said Hulu, but want to go a little extra step and say specifically Fox Searchlight is just
what I meant.
Crush this year.
Right.
Just consistently that all of a sudden became the studio to keep an eye on. Prey, Hellraiser, Fresh, not Barbarian. There's another one in there that I'm fucking lapsing on.
Is it Hatched or Hatching or something like that?
No, that's a Magnolia Magnet thing. But moving on anyway. Totally unexpected, like fun, fucking. It might actually be Fresh. I'm thinking of, and I'm used to listing 4 movies, so whatever. Anyway, yeah, just talk about just having a good slate of films, and that film fit right in there in that unexpected journey. So if you dug Barbarian, you haven't checked out Fresh on Hulu, bounce over and do that. But my true contender for it came on the list, it came off the list, it came on the list, it came off for the last few weeks is and just nobody's talking about it, is Vengeance, the BJ Novak movie.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, that's one I've been on the fence about checking out. It seems interesting enough.
Written so fucking well. But what you would not expect is the performances Novak's able to get out of all of these actors. Mm-hmm. And, also it's so fucking grounded and realistic and kind of heartbreaking in a fucked up way. It's definitely a movie I did not expect for him to make. The first scene's funny. Luckily, it isn't that type of movie. The first scene feels like what you expect from BJ Novak.
Right.
The rest of the film isn't. And it's definitely a situation where if you're looking at it and you're seeing Ashton Kutcher on there and that's a fucking red flag for you, I understand. I feel you. I took a gamble on this after having 3 people who normally wouldn't refer a movie, they really just kept hitting me with you have to see it, you have to see it, you have to see it. And I finally took a chance on it. And Kutcher, I'm not fucking with you. This is the best he's ever been by a country mile. His first fucking on camera moment has so much gravitas and so much weight under it that you're just shocked that this is the person saying the things you're seeing. And it's just handled in such a confident way that it was extremely impressive movie.
I think you're a liar, man. Butterfly Effect.
Yep.
That's the best movie I ever seen.
That was my biggest fears. I saw the country hats. I saw in Texas. I see Kutcher. I'm like, please, God, don't do the accent. Please don't try and do a Southern accent. And you know what? He doesn't. He's from North Carolina or something.
There we go.
So, he's got the hat, but there's no country accent to fucking worry about. He's really in the zone. He fucking pulls it off. Honestly, cannot recommend it enough, and it's short.
Yeah, I haven't checked out Fresh, nor have I seen Vengeance, so there's definitely 2 I need to check out. Guys, how are we feeling about our list? Feeling very confident about our picks? I think we brought a good variety, even though there was some layover, for sure.
Yeah, against internet nerds? Sure. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Top 10 without some sweat,
oh, yeah. Yeah.
At 5, man, it was I feel I know I'm going to regret some of these decisions. These movies
for sure.
Around for a while.
For sure, man. So, whenever we go to post the episode, I'll do some graphics of everybody's picks and everything. So, if you're listening to the show and you can't quite remember what everybody had and everything, be sure to check out the episode details. So I'll put links in there. We'll have it across our social media as well. And I can't thank you guys enough for joining up and contributing again to another lengthy roundtable. But I think we got a lot of good content out there for folks to check out.
100%.
Everybody be sure to check out Mr. Danny King. It's Just 2 Movies. And check out Doug Wicker at Search Party Picks across all social media as well. And I need to get one of those koozies, my man. That's fantastic.
I got it at Walmart and just put stickers on it.
Oh, I see.
I'll get you one if you want.
Okay. That's cheating. And, of course, Mr. Tom Tickle down there in the corner on the call today. You know him all too well. And hopefully we've got a Knob Nard's Closet coming at you real soon. And you're going to be seeing Tom Tickle again whenever we go do our favorite TV series of 2022. So that is going to be our next episode. Brandon, Josh, and I will be on that call. And we're going to be rolling out our list for favorite TV series of the year. Similar format to this. Guys, thank you so much. Appreciate your time. We'll see you on the other side. All right?
No problem. Have a good night, guys.
All right. You too.
This is Barrett from the ATI podcast. Each week, Josh and I discuss current events, pop culture, music, TV, movies, politics, sports. Nothing is out of bounds. You can also tune in to learn about rising artists, small businesses. Whether it's music, graphic design, filmmaking, or even a brick-and-mortar mom-and-pop shop, we will be spotlighting folks and their endeavors. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Anchor, or anywhere you enjoy your podcasts. Just search ATI Podcast. We would like to thank you for your continued support, and as always, please stay safe out there.
Hey, this is Josh from ATI Podcast. For show updates and news about the podcast, follow us on social media. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/ATI Podcast 22, on Twitter at podcast_ATI, on Instagram at the ATI Podcast, on TikTok at ATI Podcast. DMs are always welcome. Have a question for the show? You can always email us at atipodcastquestions@gmail.com. Stay safe out there.